Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Godlike Naruto returns from training trip part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Jiraiya, legendary sage, had, for the first time, exceeded his own expectations. Not only had he managed to train a Hokage not too long ago, but now had a student that would probably get there with time. More importantly, he had managed to solely focus on his students' training. Taking their training to Mount Miyaboku had not only helped lessen his peaking habits but had helped in Naruto's training considerably. That's why he couldn't help but feel pride whenever he looked at his student. No longer a loud-mouthed boy that rushed into things, Naruto had turned into a fine ninja with the years. He took his job seriously when on missions and had developed a calm attitude when in tough situations, much like his father had. The shinobi in question walked next to Jiraiya, his hair swaying slightly with the light breeze. His hair had grown on his time out of the village, with a bit of it blocking parts of his black headband and metal plate. Two bangs that reached a little past his ears framed his face, which had lost all remaining baby fat. He wore a long-sleeved black shirt with an Uzumaki symbol on the right shoulder. A standard katana was strapped to his back, its red handle peeking from his right shoulder. His hands were wrapped in white bandages but left his fingers exposed. He also wore dark blue pants with black wrappings around his ankles, ending at his black ninja sandals. All of this was finished with his Chunin vest, showing his rank to ally and enemy alike. It was a slightly modified version of his old outfit, since he knew that Ino would probably not appreciate him returning to the village wearing something orange. A smile formed on Naruto's face at that last thought. After 3 years he was finally going back to the village. Back to his friends and, most of all, back to Ino. He had missed her deeply during his travels, but those days were behind him now. His attention turned back to the road ahead. They were currently walking through the dense forest just outside of Konoha. The sky was a bright blue with the sun's rays peeking through gaps on the trees. A sudden shift in movement caught Naruto's attention, turning to his left to see a messenger hawk with a scroll on its beak flying towards him. His brows furrowed before turning to Jiraiya in confusion. The sage had gotten word of all other missions before they arrived, giving him the time to prepare, but he apparently got no word of this one. "You didn't tell me I had a mission," he spoke in a deeper voice before sticking his left arm out and having the hawk land on it. Jiraiya shrugged nonchalantly. "I might have gotten word from missions before, but who knows? This could be a last-minute one. Tsunade knows that we're near Konoha by now, so it wouldn't surprise me." The hawk opened its mouth, dropping a scroll on Naruto's hand before flapping its wings and leaving. "Let's see," Naruto muttered with a scowl, fearing that he would have to go away just as he was about to get home. The Toad Sage watched his student's darting eyes with a bit of curiosity. "What is it?" he asked once Naruto put the scroll down before pocketing it on his vest. "It's just a typical hunter ninja task," Naruto explained with a bit of relief on his voice. "Apparently a jailed ninja managed to escape a few hours ago and should be around here." He focused his chakra before using a single-hand seal, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 3 clones appeared at his side, nodding at the original before scattering in opposite directions. Naruto turned to Jiraiya and gave a confident grin. "I'll get this done quick." "Good job on the mission, Ino," Tsunade praised with a smile as she took a scroll from Ino. "No problem," Ino grinned. She had changed with the years, her body sporting the curves that came with adulthood. Her hair was still the same, though her bangs covered a bit more of the right side of her face. The style of her clothing had also changed. Ino wore a purple overcoat over a dark yellow shirt, sporting black shorts and fishnets over her knees. A few bandages covered her upper right leg, the same place where she put her kunai holster. More bandages covered her right ankle, their white color clashing against her black ninja sandals. "You're done for today," Tsunade went on, watching the impatient look Ino's face. "I'm sure you know that he'll be coming back soon." "Yeah," Ino replied almost instantly, her eyes lighting up in excitement. "We've been exchanging letters and the last one he sent said that he'd be coming home soon." Tsunade shook her head with a small smile, knowing how she felt. "You're free to leave, Ino." Ino nodded once more before leaving the office. Her footsteps echoed on the hallways of the building as she hurried out of it. She had been waiting for Naruto at the gate for around 2 days now. Because of responsibilities and other duties her time was cut short, but she had managed to wait for at least an hour before leaving so far. "Ino?" The voice snapped her out of her thoughts, eyes widening slightly when finding herself outside the building, apparently too deep in thought to notice. She turned to the source of the voice to see Sakura walking towards her, her now short hair bouncing with each step. "Did you just get back from a mission?" "About an hour now," Ino replied before crossing her arms. I just had to go over things from the mission with Tsunade-sensei. I see, Sakura muttered when noticing the hurried look on Ino's eyes. Are you late for something? Ino's eyes widened slightly before a smile formed on her face. I'm just going to the gate, she explained, eyes filled with happiness. Naruto's coming back soon and I want to greet him at the gate. Naruto? Sakura repeated in slight shock. She hadn't seen her teammate ever since she saw him leave to get Sasuke back. Though he had failed on his mission, she didn't hold him responsible for any of it. In fact, she was looking forward to seeing him again. Mind if I go with you? Of course not, Ino smiled. It'll be nice to have someone to talk to while waiting. The two soon began to walk through the village. Konoha was at its best at the moment, showing no hint of having been attacked only a few years ago. People were happy and some ninja walked through the streets with no hurry. Peaceful times were great indeed. By the way, Sakura began, gaining Ino's attention, I never asked why you stopped training with Lady Tsunade and I. Oh, that, Ino replied with a dismissive hand. I still train with Tsunade-sensei from time to time, she began, turning back to the path ahead. The reason I don't train with her as much is because I only wanted to know enough medical jutsu to help out on missions. After I got where I wanted, I started to train on combat again. Sakura nodded in agreement. Ino had always been more of a fighter than the other kunoichi. Having her become a medical ninja would be odd for those who knew her. Sakura had also heard word of Ino and Anko training together, which she guessed explained why she had taken to wear an overcoat. How's your training coming along? Ino asked, throwing a glance at Sakura. The medic ninja smiled proudly. Lady Tsunade said I'd become almost as good as Shizen now. Not to mention that she taught me how to use her chakra-enhanced punches. Ino nodded absently, her thoughts turning to Naruto for the 100th time this week. Ever since she had gotten his last letter, she had been looking forward to seeing him again. He could have had given her a specific date, but knowing him, she knew he probably got overexcited and forgot to mention anything of the sort. Naruto jumped from branch to branch while making sure to scan the area for any sort of trap just in case the unknown ninja was clever. He had yet to see any sort of trap, but it was better to be careful rather than rash in pursuit missions. One of his clones had found the ninja entering a cabin not too far from where he currently was. A second clone had stayed near the cabin just in case the ninja left once more. He wanted to end this mission early. Having the ninja escape would only waste his time. He wanted to get back to Konoha as soon as possible. His heart beat loudly on his chest in almost uncontrollable excitement. He was just so glad to be going back. Calm down, Naruto muttered to himself while shaking his head. Getting overexcited would only get him in trouble. Ridding himself of those thoughts, he continued moving through the woods before finally making it to where the other clone was. It stood against a tree with its arms crossed, apparently bored with the whole ordeal. The clone noticed Naruto and clicked its tongue in annoyance. You took too long. Right, Naruto let out a sigh. He hated clones with attitude. It was something he could never really change when making small numbers of clones. They would get these different attitudes when not in the middle of battles, and it could get annoying at times. Is he still in there? Have I dispelled yet? The clone asked with a glare, throwing its hands up in the air. Seriously. If I'm still here, it means he hasn't left yet, you son of a. Naruto dispelled the clone with an annoyed look. Why didn't I do that in the first place? He asked himself before looking at the small cabin standing on a small clearing. It was nothing impressive really, but he thought it was strange for a cabin to be on the outskirts of a hidden village. He decided to simply destroy it once the ninja was taken down. Let's get this over with. Naruto stepped out of the trees, nearing the cabin in short steps. A hand glided over his katana when hearing the sound of footsteps. He stopped dead on his tracks, jaw clenching in anticipation, before a man stepped out of the cabin. The man's eyes widened at seeing a ninja in front of him, but quickly dismissed the initial shock when taking a good look at who the ninja was, his whisker marks being a dead giveaway. He snarled before speaking the name he hated, Naruto. Naruto furrowed his brows at hearing his name. Just who was this ninja? He was dressed in a dark gray vest with the sleeves cut off, finished by a black pants and sandals. This man had a muscular build and silver hair that reached a little past his shoulders. He didn't recall ever meeting anyone like that. I can safely say that I didn't plan on seeing you again, the man commented with a smirk. Naruto cocked his head to the side, confusion showing on his face. Who are you again? What? You can't be serious, the man growled before pointing his thumb at his chest. Did you already forget me, demon? I'm Mizuki, your old teacher, and I'm here to finish what I started that night. Doesn't ring a bell, Naruto replied in a bored tone. Mizuki gritted his teeth in anger as his fists clenched. How can you be so stup? He was cut off as a fist landed painfully against his chest. Pain shot through his body before receiving a harsh kick to his stomach, doubling over in pain and letting out violent coughs in an attempt to regain his breath. Naruto pulled the katana from its sheath before bringing it down on the enemy with no hesitation. Blood splattered in all directions as the blade sliced through Mizuki's exposed neck, his body falling limply on the ground, dead, before he got the chance to realize what happened. Blood flooded out of the wound on the back of Mizuki's neck, only deep enough to kill. Naruto might at peace with killing for his village, but he would only do the necessary to get the kill. There was really no need to be too flashy when killing an enemy. He pulled out an explosive tag before slapping against Mizuki's back. Once done, he put his katana back on its sheath before walking away. He placed his hands in a single hand seal in order to activate the tag left behind. The ground behind him exploded in a large cloud of dust, leaving no sign of the cabin or body behind. He turned back to make sure there was nothing left before nodding to himself. Naruto began to run through the forest now that his mission was over. Mizuki had made the mistake to leave himself wide open when in battle just by getting angry. That was the thing with those that left imprisonment, they forgot how to fight real shinobi and were easy to defeat. Naruto rid himself of those thoughts and smiled. Now that his mission was over, he and Jiraiya could finally get going again. Jiraiya leaned against a tree with his eyes closed. His sharp ears had heard the explosion not long ago and knew that Naruto had gotten the job done already. It was good since he couldn't wait to get to Konoha, the girls that were just too good for his research. It was a little warm out, which meant that there would be girls swimming on local rivers. He smiled, he just couldn't wait. He turned to his left just as Naruto landed in front of him, not looking like he had just been in a fight. Jiraiya grinned in amusement. Another angry one? Naruto only nodded as they began to walk towards Konoha once more. Yup, this one left himself wide open, he spoke casually. Jiraiya chuckled slightly as they walked. It wasn't long until they could see the high walls that surrounded their home village. He threw a glance at his student, noticing the way his eyes lit up. Well, our training trip is officially over, Jiraiya stated. I have to say I'm quite proud of myself and how well you turned out, he admitted, watching in amusement as Naruto rolled his eyes, though I'm a bit hurt that you still haven't told me anything of your travels with Anko. Naruto's face heated up as a growl escaped his lips. I told you nothing happened. Stop saying stuff like that, he exclaimed before stomping away from his teacher. Jiraiya quickly chased after his student, laughing as he did so. Come on, kid, I won't tell anyone. Why are you angry if nothing happened anyway? Just shut up, pervert, Naruto exclaimed as he tried to get away from his master. Kotetsu and Izumo, the usual gatekeepers of Konoha, could only gape as they were struck by a blast from the past. Jiraiya, the legendary sage, walking alongside someone who looked like their late fourth Hokage. Jiraiya noticed the looks and could only grin. His student was starting to really look like his father, and his haircut only raised the resemblance. The downside would be that some people would obviously know who Naruto's father was, but it didn't matter much anymore. Naruto, though, didn't notice the looks of shock, too transfixed on the village. A smile was plastered on his face as he took in his home. The damage from the sound invasion was long gone, and Tsunade's face had been added to the Hokage monument, just beside his father's face. Hey Naruto, Jiraiya snapped him out of his thoughts, the blonde turning to look at his master. We have to report to Tsunade first. You can go look around later. Right, he nodded with the smile never leaving his face. Hey, what's it like working with the Hokage? Is she really the most powerful kunoichi? Who cares? I'm going to be the Hokage someday anyway. Ino and Sakura tried to ignore the three genin walking behind them. Looking back, maybe it hadn't been a good idea to tell them that Naruto would be coming home soon. The three were starting to get on Ino's nerves, and she was sure that Sakura was about to snap. Sakura turned to Konohamaru, Moegi and Udon with a glare. Alright brats, that's enough questions already, she growled, scaring the three children that quickly hid behind Ino. Sakura, just calm down, Ino sighed out, feeling a bit annoyed by how loud things had gotten. Konohamaru cowered in fear before looking for a way to escape, only to have his eyes widen in shock, an exited smile quickly forming on his mouth. Boss. Everyone turned at the sound of Konohamaru's voice, finding a smirking Jiraiya standing next to a very amused Naruto. Please, don't let us interrupt, Jiraiya chuckled. Ino's breath hitched in her throat as she stared at the newly arrived ninja. Her eyes met his, finding their usual warmth and energy before tears welled up in her eyes. Naruto, she smiled before running at him and tackling him into a hug. He returned the hug with a warm smile on his face. I missed you, he let out as he held her closer, taking in her warmth and scent, so much. A few happy tears rolled down Ino's cheeks as she buried her head on the crook of his neck. Me too, you don't know how much, she replied with her eyes closed. She let out a giggle when noticing their height difference. You're taller than me now. Naruto smiled as he pulled away from the hug, staring into Ino's eyes. For that moment it was just the two of them, everyone else seemed to fade away. They continued to look into each other's eyes before closing them and meeting in a kiss. The boss has a girlfriend. The two quickly broke apart, realizing that they were standing right in the middle of their friends. Naruto blushed slightly before turning to his teacher and finding him writing rigorously on his notebook. He could only roll his eyes at his antics. Stop using me for your research, he complained but wasn't heard by the smiling Jiraiya that kept on writing. Konohamaru quickly moved in front of Naruto, throwing him a smirk. Hey boss, I have to show you my new jutsu, Konohamaru exclaimed. Naruto's eye twitched when seeing the familiar hand sign and, much to his misfortune, everyone else had given their attention to the genin who didn't seem to notice and performed it. Sexy jutsu. He was engulfed by a cloud of smoke before a naked girl appeared on his place with the smoke blocking just the right places. Now that's what I call a jutsu, Jiraiya exclaimed in glee, giving 2 thumbs up. Ino and Sakura only glared at the boy while wondering where he had learned such a jutsu. Naruto, despite his initial worry, began to chuckle. It was just too nostalgic to see the jutsu once again. Konohamaru raised a brow before releasing the jutsu. What's with the laugh, boss? You shouldn't be using jutsu like that anymore, he smiled before noticing the sad look that crossed Konohamaru's face. Since I was the one that taught you that jutsu, I guess I'll need to fix things, he declared. Whenever I have the time, I'll teach you a real jutsu. Really? Konohamaru exclaimed excitedly. Of course, the Chunin assured before turning back to Ino. Let's go talk at Ichiraku Ramen. I want to know all you've been up to. Letters can only say so much. Alright, Ino agreed before clinging to Naruto's arm, not wanting to be separated from him anymore. It wasn't until now that Naruto took note of Sakura, watching her with an almost shocked expression. Hey Sakura, you haven't changed at all. Hi Naruto, she said through gritted teeth, feeling a bit insulted from his comment before taking in his appearance and looking at him oddly. I have to admit that you changed a lot, she pointed out. Really? He asked in slight confusion. I haven't really noticed. Ino giggled, tightening her grip on the blonde. Trust me, you did. But it's a good change though. Alright, that's enough, Jiraiya broke in, having stood on the sidelines long enough. We have to see the Hokage. Naruto, you can go out with your girlfriend to continue what you were doing later. The two blondes blushed at that. For now, let's go report to Tsunade. Right, Naruto chuckled nervously before turning to Sakura and the 3 genin. You guys want to come along? Of course, Konohamaru agreed with a smile. Moegi pulled on his ear before looking at Naruto with an apologetic smile. We have to meet with Ebisu-sensei, sorry. Konohamaru objected but was pulled away by his 2 teammates while trying to get out of their hold. I guess I'll tag along, Sakura said as they watched the 3 genin leave. Then let's go. I have places to be, Jiraiya informed before leading the group towards the Hokage Tower. Naruto smiled as he walked with Ino clinging into his arm. He turned to her, their eyes meeting before he broke into a smile. He was finally home. Jiraiya led the group to the Hokage Tower with a smile plastered on his face. They only needed to report to Tsunade, hand in Naruto's mission report, and he'd finally be able to do some research. His fingers were aching to write and his exited demeanor didn't seem to want to go away. The group soon made it to the room just outside the Hokage's office. There was a receptionist waiting behind a table to the side, but Jiraiya paid her no mind as he entered the room with Naruto, Ino and Sakura following close behind. We're back, Tsunade, Jiraiya greeted with a wave to the Hokage sitting behind her desk. Tsunade smiled upon seeing Naruto. He sure had grown. He was a bit shorter than Jiraiya, quiet, tall in contrast of his old self. She frowned upon seeing his hair. It looked longer than usual. She hoped he wasn't going through a rebellious phase. Well then, she began, making a mental note of speaking to Naruto later. Welcome back to the village, she went on. I take it you succeeded on your mission, Naruto. Naruto nodded with a grin. The ninja's been dealt with, he assured before walking to her desk and giving her a scroll he had just taken out of his vest. Here's my report. Tsunade nodded as she put the scroll on her desk before turning back to Jiraiya. From what you've told me, the training trip went great, but I'll need to be sure. What do you mean by that, Tsunade-sensei? Ino spoke up with a bit of confusion on her face. I have to see Naruto's progress myself. As the Hokage, I can't just take their word for it. I have to make sure of how far he's gotten, she explained before turning to the open window on the right side of her office. "We have someone here to test you." Naruto, Ino, and Sakura turned to the open window to see Kakashi poke his head inside with a smile noticed on his features. "Good to see you again, Naruto," he greeted with a chuckle. "You've really grown up." Naruto nodded with a grin. "Are you going to be the one testing me?" "Yup," was his simple reply. "Naruto, you are to go to Training Ground 7 as soon as our meeting is over," Tsunade announced before looking around the room. "Now, I'll need all of you except Naruto to leave. We have things to discuss." Ino began to walk out of the room before turning back to Naruto and giving him a small smile. "I'll see you outside." "Right," Naruto nodded as the rest of the group left, leaving him alone with Tsunade. The Hokage rose from her seat as soon as the group left. She gave Naruto a stern look as she crossed her arms in an intimidating fashion, making him back away nervously. "I want you to tell me if Jiraiya did anything stupid during your training. I promise myself to make him pay if he's tainted you," she growled. Naruto chuckled nervously under her powerful glare. Just what would happen when she found out where Jiraiya had taken him for one of his birthdays? Gaara sat on the Sand Village Council room. He occupied the seat of Kazekage. It had been a long and hard road, but he had managed to get into the position due to his hard work. This way he could protect those precious to him, and of course, his village much better than being a standard shinobi. The old council had been replaced after their last had almost caused a war. Chio had become the head of the council while other retired shinobi took the open positions. Some changes were made to make sure that neither the Kazekage nor the council would have full control, and it had worked great so far. The village was at peace and was steadily growing stronger. Lord Kazekage, a councilman, began while shuffling through some papers. His dark eyes stared into Gaara as he cleared his throat. "The Waterfall Village has asked for your attendance to their Chunin exam finals." A councilwoman narrowed her eyes as she rested her elbows on the large circular table. "I'm opposed to it. Even if it's the first time the Waterfall Village has hosted the Chunin exams, I don't believe that the Kazekage should leave the village for it." "I disagree," another councilwoman spoke. "The Kazekage should represent our village at every occasion possible. We've only begun to be recognized, and declining an invitation to the Chunin exams would be foolish." "I agree as well," Gaara spoke calmly. "A few of our teams have made it to the finals, and it should be I that supports them by being there." Chio nodded in agreement. "Very well. Since your brother and sister have left the village, we'll assign a pair of Jonin to fill the gaps of your escort team." "Then this meeting is over," Gaara declared. "I'll be leaving in a few days." Two Akatsuki members walked along a dense forest. The two wore the usual cloak along with straw hats with tassels hanging down over their faces. They were required to wear these whenever close to a village, as was the case at the moment. Having their identity kept secret was a big part of being part of the Akatsuki. The two Akatsuki members had just met with a spy on the outskirts of the Waterfall Village as per their leader's orders. They had just finished their meeting and had found out that an invitation to the Chunin exams had been sent to the Kazekage. This would be the time to strike for the two members that had been assigned with the capture of the one-tailed demon. If the Jinchuriki did travel to the Waterfall Village, then they would simply strike once he was on the road. "We better tell this to the others, yeah?" One of the Akatsuki members spoke. The other member, holding a scythe over the shoulder, stayed silent, annoying the first member. "Your quiet act is getting old. Make sure not to get on my nerves, HM." "Let's just report to the leader and decide on our next move," the other member replied as the two continued moving. Whether the Kazekage move or not would not affect them much. Attacking while he was on the road would be easier than capturing him on the Sand Village, though capturing him there was still possible. The Jinchuriki would be captured regardless. It was just a matter of time. Naruto walked along the path to the training grounds with an excited smile. It would be the first time he sparred with Kakashi, not counting his horrible attempt at getting the bells years ago, of course. He was curious as to what kind of jutsu Kakashi would use. He was rumored to know hundreds after all. Ino walked alongside him, watching the area around them in silence. The silence between them was a bit awkward since they were left to walk alone. It had been 3 years since they had been alone, and it felt a bit awkward. She was sure that they would be back to normal in no time, though she still hated the silence between them. The two passed the fence before finally making it to the training grounds. Kakashi was already there, leaning against a tree while reading his favorite book, with Sakura standing next to him looking a bit bored. Jiraiya and Tsunade stood a bit to the side, the latter crossing her arms once seeing the blonde couple arrive. "What took you so long, Naruto?" Tsunade asked in a stern voice. Naruto chuckled while scratching the back of his neck. "Well, you didn't say I had to get here fast, and besides, I wanted to take in the village before coming here." The legendary ninja narrowed her eyes before groaning in defeat. "Fine, she wielded before crossing her arms. We'll get started right away then. Kakashi, you can begin. Said Ninja closed his book before turning to his old student with a glint of excitement on his eye. Alright then. Let's see what you've learned, Naruto. Naruto smirked as a light breeze ruffled his hair with his eyes burning in determination. Alright, he slipped into his taijutsu stance as Ino moved to stand next to her master and Jiraiya with Sakura trailing along. Kakashi and Naruto stared each other down, their trained eyes looking for the move that would begin their fight. A breeze washed over the area just as the two ninja charged at each other. Naruto was the first to throw a right hook, but the Jonin easily slapped his fist away before retaliating with a kick to his side. The blonde quickly lowered his left elbow to meet the blow before kicking at the Jonin's side. Kakashi's visible eye widened before blocking the kick with his left arm and proceeding to kick Naruto's leg from under him. The blonde let out a short gasp as he fell on the ground before rolling with the momentum and getting into a standing position just as Kakashi delivered a kick to where he had just been. Not bad, Naruto, Kakashi praised as he raised a hand to his headband. Looks like I'll need to take you seriously. He uncovered his left eye, his Sharingan eye staring into the blonde. Naruto grinned before running through hand signs and putting a hand to his lips. Wind style, devastation. The powerful gust of air shot at Kakashi as it kicked up large clouds of dust. The copy ninja was quick to run through hand signs before slamming both hands on the ground, earth style, mud wall. A tall wall of earth emerged from the ground, clashing against the wind and keeping Kakashi from being flung around the area. He knew how Naruto's jutsu worked since he had mastered countless of jutsu himself. That had given him an edge when it came to ninjutsu and was able to counter almost anything. He climbed up the wall just as the wind ceased, only to see Naruto running through hand signs once more. Wind style, air bullets! He exclaimed as powerful blasts of wind shot at the copy ninja. Kakashi's Sharingan focused on the jutsu as he charged at the blonde. He easily maneuvered around the air bullets before throwing a kick at the Chunin, though it met only air as he suddenly disappeared in a cloud of smoke. A clone? He wondered out loud before catching movement to his left. He landed safely on the ground before turning his head to the side to see the blonde holding a hand sign with a smirk on his face. A gust of wind gathered around Naruto as his eyes focused on the opponent, wind style, slicing winds. Kakashi's eyes widened as blade-like bursts of wind shot at his direction. He cursed under his breath before jumping away from the attack, watching as it crashed against a tree and left deep cut marks on it. What was that jutsu? He wondered as he sailed through the air. He hadn't seen that jutsu before. It was as though he took the wind manipulation training to a wild new level. Well, that just means I'll have to be on the offensive this time. Naruto frowned as Kakashi flipped through the air before shooting a large fireball at his direction. I hate those things, he muttered bitterly before running through hand signs and slamming both hands on the ground, earth style, mud wall. Another wall of earth emerged from the ground, taking on the giant ball of fire but still remaining standing tall. The blonde ran up the wall before kicking off of it, moving towards the copy ninja, but his eyes shot up in alarm when noticing the large river only a few steps behind Kakashi, and the latter running through hand signs. Water style, water dragon jutsu. The Chunin scolded himself for not making sure of his surroundings before reaching for his katana. He poured chakra into his katana as many blue seals appeared around the blade, taking everyone except for Jiraiya by surprise. Naruto put the blade between himself and the dragon, crashing against it and pushing the blonde through the air. Naruto grunted but kept his hold on the blade as the dragon's size began to lessen. The Justa continued to push the blonde through the air before beginning to disappear into the blade. Kakashi watched in amazement as his attack completely disappeared into the blade, just what had Naruto used just now. Naruto's katana shone a bright blue before he twirled it on his hand and gripped it tightly. The seals turned a black color as the Chunin smirked. Take this! Naruto exclaimed as he swung his blade at Kakashi. Bright blue chakra shot out of the blade, heading straight for Kakashi. He had little time to react but managed to kick off the ground just in time to avoid the blast of chakra. The copy ninja looked at his student in shock, wondering what that had been but cursed under his breath when seeing him running through hand signs once more. Wind style, wind dragon jutsu. Kakashi gritted his teeth as a wind version of his water dragon jutsu shot at him. He was airborne, which made things a lot more difficult though not impossible. With swiftness coming from a ninja with years of experience, Kakashi twirled in the air, just barely avoiding the jutsu though not avoiding being hurled through the air due to the wind surrounding it. He quickly regained his balance and landed on the ground without much trouble, this time knowing not to take his attention off of his student. What was that with your blade? Kakashi couldn't help but ask. It had truly come as a shock. Naruto relaxed his stance with a small grin on his face. I got the idea to put seals of my blade some time ago, he explained with a bit of pride. During one of my missions I fought someone that could absorb chakra with a blade before shooting it back at me. I recreated it, but it can't take as much chakra as the other could. I see, Kakashi muttered. Not bad, Naruto. But we'll have to kick it up a notch now. Naruto nodded with a determined grin on his face. Let's do it. The copy ninja quickly ran through hand signs before aiming at the blonde, water style, water shark bomb jutsu. A large shark made of water rose behind Kakashi, towering over Naruto before shooting at him at a rapid speed. Earth style, earth dragon jutsu. Naruto countered with his own jutsu. The ground before him shooting upwards and taking the form of a dragon. It shot at the incoming jutsu, clashing against it and shooting water and mud in all directions. Well done, Kakashi muttered to himself before focusing his chakra on his right palm. The blonde looked at the copy ninja through narrowed eyes. Lightning gathered around his hand which, at first seemed like a Chidori, but he knew better. Kakashi wouldn't use a jutsu like that on him since it was only a spar, it had to be some other kind of jutsu. But what? Lightning style, lightning strike. Naruto's eyes widened as lightning bolts shot out of Kakashi's hand. His eyes shot up in alarm as he tried to get out of the way but wasn't fast enough to avoid being struck by one of the bolts on his left leg. He grit his teeth as pain shot through his leg before it began to shake uncontrollably, due to the electricity no doubt. That's a paralyzing jutsu, Kakashi explained with a chuckle. What will you do, no Naruto? The blonde took a deep breath to calm himself before closing his eyes. He cleared his head of any thought as warm chakra washed over him. It gathered around his leg until the pain subsided. Naruto let out a breath as he let go off of the chakra he had gathered around his body. His eyes snapped open as he stared at his teacher with a confident smirk on his face. This isn't over, Kakashi-sensei, he declared in excitement. Kakashi nodded. I didn't expect it to be. Well, I do, Tsunade broke in, earning looks of disbelief from Naruto and Kakashi. I can't have you two getting hurt in a spar, she explained. Besides, now I have an understanding of Naruto's level. So can we leave now? Naruto asked while taking a quick glance at Ino. Tsunade smiled before nodding yes. Jiraiya and I will stay behind, but you can leave if you wish. Naruto turned to Ino with a smile on his face, quickly walking up to her and taking her hand on his. Let's go, he whispered in slight panic, not giving Ino time to realize just what was going on. You too, Sakura, trust me. His face showed nothing but panic, making Sakura fall into step behind Naruto and Ino though looking at him oddly. Jiraiya watched them leave with a raised brow. He turned to Kakashi only to see that he wasn't there anymore, apparently leaving the moment Tsunade said it was okay. Speaking of which, he turned to his old teammate with a scowl. Why'd they leave like that? Naruto's 15th birthday, Tsunade growled with a glare. The sage paled and, for the second time on his life, felt terrorized by Tsunade. He thought that she was overreacting, it had only been a trip to a brothel. No big deal. And why had Naruto sold him out like that? He knew that he and Tsunade were close, but he didn't really need to tell her. So, as he stared at the glaring Tsunade, he knew that things would not end well for him. Naruto and Ino walked along a busy street. After getting away from the outraged Tsunade, the couple had parted ways with Sakura, the latter saying that she was needed at the hospital. The rest of their walk had been filled with silence at first, but was gradually getting a bit more comfortable for the two to talk. What had been awkward silence was now comfortable as the two enjoyed each other's company. Ino had invited Naruto to her home since her parents probably wanted to see him again. Naruto felt a bit uneasy of meeting with Inoichi again, the talk about the spoon still fresh on his mind, but had decided on going with Ino. So, what happened while I was gone? We never got to talk about the others on our letters, Naruto spoke as he looked around the village with a small smile. He turned to Ino, admiring the way her eyes glowed with the light. His eyes softened before looking away, realizing that he had been staring at her too much. Ino smiled warmly before latching onto his arm and leaning her head against his shoulder. Everyone in our graduating class are Chunin now, she began, well, except for Shikamaru. He was promoted to Jonin a couple of months ago. Really? Naruto asked, genuinely surprised. Ino giggled at his shock. Everyone that had known Shikamaru had been surprised as well. Yup, she assured with amusement on her voice. He did stall for months but finally agreed to the promotion. He keeps on saying that it's a pain in the ass, but he's doing well so far. Naruto chuckled. That sounded like Shikamaru. Alright, that's great. The two continued to walk in comfortable silence, throwing occasional glances at each other, and staring into each other's eyes on occasions. Some onlookers gave them knowing looks while others simply smiled at the show of affection. It was good to be young. Tsunade sat behind her desk once again. Her knuckles ached slightly and a bit of anger still lingered, but she pushed it away for the moment. She still had questions and the pervert in front of her had the answers. "Did you find anything on the Akatsuki?" she asked with her expression turning serious. Jiraiya nursed his aching jaw, sporting a few bruises and a bit of his clothes ripped off. "Not much," he admitted after a short pause. "They've caught a few Jinchuriki but not too many. According to my sources, the 3 tails, 4 tails and 5 tails have been captured." "I see," Tsunade muttered with a heavy heart. These people were dangerous and got closer to confronting Naruto with each passing day. With this in mind, her expression grew firm. How strong is Naruto, really? Will he really be able to put up a fight with the Akatsuki? Jiraiya couldn't help but grin in pride. He crossed his arms and let out a chuckle. "I wasn't kidding when I said that I would only focus on his training. That kid knows some of my strongest techniques. He's at a level where he can defend himself against them but still has the time and potential to grow." Tsunade seemed a bit skeptical, wanting to believe Jiraiya but finding it hard to. "How about this?" Jiraiya raised a finger for emphasis. "Give him a test of kinds. Make sure he's at least Jonin level. Though it might be hard since that kid doesn't like to show off what he can really do." "Good idea," Tsunade nodded. "I had been considering him for a Jonin position. I guess I'll just give him a mission that's been sitting on my desk since yesterday and add it to the usual Jonin test. That'll prove if he really is able to defend himself." Naruto smiled as he stood in front of Ino's home. He felt a bit nostalgic seeing as how her house appeared a lot smaller than before. His attention turned to Ino, his girlfriend letting go off his arm before throwing him a smile. "Come on in," Ino offered as she opened the door to her home. Naruto followed after her, seeing a few changes in furniture arrangement, but not losing its home feeling. "I'm back," she called from where they stood. "Welcome back," Miki responded as she exited a room before taking note of Naruto. Her eyes widened as a smile formed on her face. "You didn't tell me Naruto was coming back today." Naruto chuckled. "Well, I never gave her a date. We only ran into each other by chance." "You're always so impatient," Ino smiled as she shook her head, earning a sheepish look from her boyfriend. "Impatient?" A male voice came from behind Naruto. The Chunin spun on his heels to see Inoichi standing before him with a frown on his face. "You're not forcing my little girl to anything, are you?" He leaned towards Naruto, his eyes burning in silent fury. Naruto gulped while waving his hands frantically on the air. "Oh, of course not." Inoichi kept his glare on the Chunin before being pushed away by Miki. "Leave him alone already. He just got back." "But I can't let him corrupt my little girl," he complained as he was pushed into another room. Ino turned to Naruto with an embarrassed blush on her face. "Sorry about that." "Don't worry about it," Naruto waved her off with a smile. "It's nice to see they haven't changed at all." He looked back at Ino, eyes softening. "It's relieving to see that nothing's changed." Ino smiled warmly before pushing Naruto out of her home. His eyes furrowed in puzzlement, wondering why she had just pushed her out of her home before her lips crashed against his. His eyes were wide in shock before relaxing against her lips and returning the kiss just as fiercely. He missed this. Having Ino so close to him, being able to feel her heartbeat that assured him that the moment was real. The two broke apart, resting their foreheads against each other as they looked into each other's eyes. "I miss you," Ino let out quietly. Naruto pecked her lips before a small smile formed on his lips. "I know, but I will never leave like that again. And if I do, then I'm taking you with me." "You have to promise, though," she replied with a bit of desperation on her voice, as if him promising would make it happen. "We'll never be apart like that again," he began in a gentle tone. He kissed her lightly before pulling away. "I promise." Naruto had always been a person that was easy to surprise. It was part of the reason why he would get distracted during some fights back when he was younger. This had changed after spending so much time with Jiraiya. It hadn't been because of focused training or hours of meditation. Rather, Jiraiya had a knack for pulling his versions of pranks on him at any given time. Expecting anything from the sage had become a necessity since his pranks never ended well for him. Which is why, when he woke up to see Jiraiya sitting in a chair near his window didn't surprise him as much as it should. He simply raised a brow, unfazed by the sage's presence. "What are you doing here so early, Jiraiya-sensei?" Naruto mumbled as he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes. Jiraiya grinned. "I just came by to give you some news about a new mission." "Already?" Naruto let out a yawn as he sat on the edge of his bed, looking at Jiraiya oddly. "I don't really mind, but having one mission right after the other seems a bit weird." Don't worry about it, Jiraiya waved him off. Anyway, I only came to advise you not to use it yet. Naruto nodded with a serious expression on his face. Yeah, I know. He turned his attention to the window. It was sunny with bright blue skies, pretty normal weather for Konoha. So, any idea on what kind of mission it is? I didn't really ask, Jiraiya admitted with a shrug. All I heard was that it was in Wave. This caught the Chunin's attention. He hadn't been in Wave in a very long time. He wondered how they were doing now. Last he heard was that they were a lot better than before. Of course, anything was better than what Wave had gone through during his mission, which is why he was a bit skeptical. I came to say what I wanted. I'll be going now. Jiraiya rose from his seat before opening the large window on Naruto's room. Good luck and remember to be careful. I'll see you around, kid. With that, the sage jumped out the window and disappeared in the distance. Can't he use a door? Naruto wondered out loud. Ino stood in the Hokage's office. Tsunade sat behind her desk as usual with Shizen standing at her side with Tonton on her arms. The kunoichi didn't have to think of why she was there at the moment. It was obvious that she would be getting a new mission, but, glancing at Choji and Hinata standing next to her, she couldn't help but feel a bit thrown off. For one, she and Hinata had never been on a mission together before. Any abilities the Hyuga heiress might have were a mystery to her. Not to mention the awkwardness around them due to the Hyuga's lingering crush on her boyfriend made things a bit uncomfortable around them. She needs to get over him, she thought a bit bitterly. The second thing that threw her off was the fact that Choji and Hinata would be going on the mission with her. The two were strong Chunin on their own right, Choji having been training harder than before while the other had a powerful bloodline. Judging by the level of her team, it was a mission with high risk. Also, according to Tsunade, their squad leader hadn't even arrived yet. Just what kind of mission would they be going on? I'll explain the mission briefly, Tsunade spoke in her serious, commanding voice. Her eyes were sharp as she glanced at the three Chunin before speaking once more. I want you to explain this to your squad leader when you meet with him. Ino frowned slightly, crossing her arms in annoyance. How is this person the squad leader if he isn't even on time? Tsunade chuckled slightly at that. I told him to get here a bit later. After all, he just got back to the village yesterday. Huh? Sorry I'm late, came Naruto's voice from behind them. The Chunin smiling sheepishly while scratching the back of his neck. I didn't know we had to meet this early. You're actually early this time, Tsunade pointed out in genuine surprise. 3 years ago he had spent his last weeks in the village being late for everything, so this came as a pleasant shock to her. You're actually just in time to hear about the mission's details. Naruto nodded as he moved to stand next to Ino, giving Choji and Hinata a small wave as he did so. Alright then, let's go over the details already, Tsunade began with her voice returning to its commanding tone. You'll be going on a mission to Wave. She paused before taking out a scroll and setting it on the table. Their boats are apparently being destroyed by an unknown force. You're free to look at the scroll, Naruto, since you'll be leading this team. Naruto nodded before taking the scroll and opening it, reading over its contents with a skeptical look on his face. He pocketed the scroll before furrowing his brows in confusion. A monster? Apparently so, the Hokage repeated, a bit skeptical as well. Take into consideration that the only people to see this thing have been fishermen, she explained. Anything could be doing this, so I want you to find out what it is and stop it. Naruto glanced briefly at his team. Ino wearing a scowl on her face, obviously thinking that it was way too incredible to be true. Choji on the other hand didn't seem to mind going on the mission as he simply stood there calmly. And lastly Hinata, a light blush adorning her cheeks and looking a bit confused as well. Is there a specific time we have to get this done by? The leader of the group asked with his face sporting a small scowl. Tsunade shook her head. You can take as long as you want. Also, you are to leave immediately. I expect you came here ready to travel? Naruto turned to his group for confirmation, receiving nods. Alright, we'll be leaving now, he announced before turning on his heel and walking to the door. Let's go, guys. Tsunade watched as the group of ninja left the room. She still did not believe that an actual monster was terrorizing the sea, but whatever it was powerful. Are you okay, Lady Tsunade? Shizen asked in slight worry, noticing her master's features. The Hokage got back to her work with a huff. I'm not worried about the brat. Shizen smiled. Tsunade could be such a mom to Naruto sometimes, even if she didn't admit it. Then he got hit by a frying pan. Naruto laughed as he and the others sped through the woods outside of Konoha. Ino giggled at the story. That sounded just like the pervert. It was good to hear that he received punishment for how he acted. She threw a quick glance at her boyfriend, relieved that he hadn't turned out like the pervert. If he had, then she could safely say that Jiraiya would end up in a hospital by her hand, or Tsunade's. So, what have you been up to, Choji? Naruto asked with a grin, glancing at his friend and marveling at how much he had grown since he had last saw him, now wearing some kind of samurai outfit. I've been alright, Choji responded with a chuckle, a bit relieved that Naruto hadn't changed much. Just doing missions and being around friends. Not going to talk about the shop girl I see, Ino teased, making her teammate blush with a baffled look on his face. Naruto's brows rose at that, quickly turning to Ino with an amused smile. What shop girl? Ino laughed lightly. There's this girl th. Stop, Choji exclaimed with an embarrassed blush on his face. We're on a mission right now. We can talk about that stuff later. Naruto turned to Ino, the kunoichi giving him a slight nod with a smile. Yes, they would be talking about it later, the Chunin figured with a chuckle. He turned to the last member of the team, flashing her a smile as he spoke. What about you, Hinata? How have you been? I've been fine, the Hyuga spoke with a blush on her face, turning her face to the side as not to be seen. The squad leader, seeing as Hinata turned her face to the side, figured that she didn't want to talk anymore, so turned back to the road ahead while thinking of how the mission should go. They had time on their side, but he really didn't want to risk more ships getting destroyed by whatever that thing was. How do you guys want to do this? He asked his team with his voice returning to its usual business tone. Should we speed through the road and get there by nightfall? Or should we just take it easy and get there tomorrow? I say we get there today, Ino suggested. Sure, we'll have close to no chakra once we get there, but we can just spend the night there and leave the next day. Choji nodded to himself, a pensive look on his face. Sounds like a good idea. I don't mind, was Hinata's reply. Naruto grinned. It looked like his team thought a lot like him. It was great since he didn't like traveling so slowly. Good, then let's kick it up a notch. The group of ninja increased their pace, shooting past the area with their chakra-enhanced speed. It was dark as the team walked along the dirt path leading to Wave. The air was cool and pure, making the tired ninja a bit drowsy. It had been a long day, having been running all day with the aid of chakra. Even Naruto felt winded and had gotten his team to slow down the next couple of miles. We're getting close to the bridge, Naruto announced. They went up a small hill to see the bridge standing proudly before them, all of them visually relaxing since their trip was over. Ino let out a sigh of relief. I'm never traveling at full speed again. Tell me about it, Choji agreed while panting slightly. Yeah, Hinata muttered with a few beads of sweat visible on her face. You're the ones that agreed on it. So don't complain, Naruto reminded with a smirk on his face, earning a collective groan from the team. They walked in silence the rest of the way, passing by the bridge with no problems. There had been a sign, but it had been too dark to see what it read, not that it mattered since Naruto didn't think that they would be staying for too long. It was a simple mission, in his opinion, since they would only need to find the monster before taking it out. The streets were empty when they finally entered town. It was in great shape, Naruto noticed with a smile on his face. A few stores were open, and he could see that the buildings were in great shape, unlike last time when they have been falling apart. From what he could currently see, Wave was seeing its better days. The squad leader looked around the streets for any sort of inn, and that's when he saw one of the buildings with a light on its entrance. It was an inn, and the building actually looked a bit cozy. He guessed that they could spend the night there, though he was a bit low on cash thanks to a perverted sage taking some of his money while he slept. Are you guys alright with this inn? Naruto asked his team. Ino shrugged, not really caring about where they slept. I don't mind it, she had slept in the oddest of places thanks to her training with Enko. Even though the snake summoner left the village for long periods of time, she always managed to leave a strong impression on their training. It looks fine, Hinata agreed in a weary voice. Let's go in then, the squad leader spoke before entering the building, his team following close behind. The inside of the inn was warm. Its wooden floors glowing against the lights of the room with a single reception desk on the side, a woman, possibly in her early 20s, sitting behind it with a dazed look on her face. Naruto walked to the receptionist, noticing that she was actually about to fall asleep. Excuse me, he spoke in a clear voice, snapping the woman out of her daze. She looked at him oddly as he continued, we want to spend the night here. The receptionist squinted her eyes before reaching under her desk for a pair of glasses. She brushed aside her black bangs before putting on her glasses and instantly gaping. In front of her stood a stranger with blonde hair, bright blue eyes and sun-kissed skin. What? She stammered with a blush on her face. Ino frowned slightly before walking over to her boyfriend and latching onto his arm, all the while giving the receptionist an annoyed look. We're looking for a room. Are there any available? We all are, Choji broke in a little nervously, noticing the silent fight between the two girls. The receptionist gave Ino a dirty look before smirking, noticing that there were 2 guys and 2 girls. Well, we have 2 rooms available, she spoke sweetly, it'd be perfect for you guys. One for guys and the other for the girls. Will that work? That'll work, Choji quickly agreed, not wanting to have the confrontation last any longer. Good, the receptionist smiled before taking out a pair of kids and handing them to Naruto. Here are your keys. You'll have to pay in the morning, so don't worry about it now. Have a good night. Thanks, Naruto smiled in appreciation. He had to remember the name of the inn, they had good service. The Chunin turned back to his team, giving Ino a set of keys. Here are your keys. We'll meet in the morning and go to look for that thing. Get plenty of rest. Choji and Hinata began to walk into a hallway leading to the rooms while Ino approached Naruto, wrapping her arms around him and inching her mouth close to his ear. Naruto blushed at the closeness, with Ino's breath tickling his ear and sending shivers down his spine. Ino. It's a shame we couldn't get a room together, she muttered seductively into his ear, smiling inwardly when feeling his body go stiff. We could have had a great night. Naruto could only gape as Ino left the room with a sway on her hips. What was that? He thought in alarm, a bright blush on his face. The group left the inn the following morning with the receptionist telling Naruto to come again, while Ino glared at her. They had split the bill since Naruto couldn't pay it for himself. They then left the inn and, after talking it over, they decided to split up in order to cover more ground. All they would need to do was find someone to, not only tell them where the beast was, but to actually take them there or lend them the necessary transportation to get there by themselves. It had been around an hour since they split up. Naruto was currently walking through a street filled with restaurants. Training with Jiraiya had taught him where to get information from other towns or villages. A place where information was easy to obtain. A bar. A place where people would talk about anything, though some people having a price for certain discussions. Finding information in a bar was quite easy since every man liked to boast, and, with a bit of alcohol on their system, one could manipulate said person to tell him almost all kinds of things. There it is, Naruto smiled upon seeing a bar on the corner of the street. He quickly entered the establishment, and raised a brow. It was early in the morning and yet, there were already people sitting there drinking. Though surprised, he made his way through the bar to see if anyone could tell him where the monster was. What's a ninja doing here? A gruff voice spoke in an angry manner. Naruto turned his attention to the source of the voice, finding a man looking at him angrily. He had a big build and had a shaved head, dressing in a green shirt and brown pants. Just a drunk, Naruto concluded. Well? The man continued with a growl. The Chunin ignored the man, choosing to seat in a table instead of in the stool. This would give him more space to see who came in and out of the bar, in turn, making it easier for him to find someone that looked like he knew something. You bastard ninja! The same man yelled as he approached the blonde, his steps heavy against the wooden floor. He slammed both hands on the table with his face showing distaste. We don't want any ninja here. Naruto looked up at the man. His blue eyes cold as he glared at him. Move. The man flinched at the tone but held his ground with his mouth forming into a deep frown. What makes you think you can tell me what to do? He clenched his fists in anger. You ninja are all out. Enough, came a voice from behind the man, a hand clasping his shoulder. The man turned to the owner of the voice, looking at him in surprise. Tazuna? Naruto's eyes widened at that, leaning to his left to see old man Tazuna standing behind the drunk that had been getting on his nerves. Don't you know who this is? Tazuna smiled as he crossed his arms. Why, this is the person I named my bridge after. The whole bar went silent, the bald man looking at Tazuna incredulously. Are you serious? Of course I am, Tazuna assured before sitting in front of Naruto, looking at him fondly. It is you, right? It's been a long time, old man, Naruto greeted with a grin, crossing his arms as he looked about the bar. Didn't think I'd see you here so early though. Tazuna chuckled. Well, I figured I'd go for a drink, he admitted. The town's in an uproar about this beast. You know about that? The Chunin asked in surprise. Know about it? He laughed. I was the one that sent the mission to Konoha. I didn't think that they would send you though. Naruto's brows furrowed in confusion. Why not? The bridge builder smirked before crossing his arms. Because I asked for someone good. Damn you, Naruto growled with his right eye twitching. Tazuna just had a way to get under his skin. Ino walked near a river in the middle of town, a frown visible on her face. So far, she had yet to find anyone with any information on the monster. It had been about an hour since they had split up, and she was beginning to wonder why exactly nobody seemed to know where it was. She figured that finding the information would be easier. Maybe I should just give up on this, she mused before leaning against the wall of a home near the river. And what do you mean by that? Ino heard a loud voice speak. Curious, she turned her attention to her left to see two people walking. Both with dark skin. One was a girl, with red hair down to her shoulders and what looked like a white bandana covering part of it. The other was a guy with spiky white hair that clashed with the black headband he wore. Finally, they both dressed strangely, mostly covered in white and gray. They were clearly not from the area. Ino looked at them through furrowed brows before they turned in her direction, showing the metal plates on their headwear. She looked away from them, not wanting to catch their attention. She wasn't wearing her headband, which she was thankful for, though her clothes were still that of a shinobi. Cloud Ninja, she thought in alarm, throwing them a glance to see them turn away from her before continuing their walk. What the hell are they doing here? Cloud Ninja weren't the most peaceful ninja. They were responsible for many conflicts with other villages and had even tried to kidnap a Hyuga some time ago. It looked like things had already taken a turn for the worse. Ino began to walk away from the area with hurried steps. She needed to find Naruto and tell him about this. Did you see that, Kunoichi? Asked the male Cloud Ninja, now seen with a lollipop on his mouth. His expression was one of thought as he looked at his teammate. The female ninja crossed her arms, a frown on her face. What of it? It's not like it affects our mission. The male Cloud Ninja shook his head, his expression turning grim. If she was a ninja, then that means someone sent her here, he began. She most likely came here on a big mission. Probably to take over the whole village and in turn kill us. Though she might spare you because you've yet to fully develop. His response was a painful punch to his ribs. Who do you think you're talking to? The female ninja exclaimed in anger, watching in pleasure as her teammate rubbed his ribs. The other ninja said nothing as they resumed their trek through town. He knew there was something odd about the ninja they had seen earlier. Why would Wave be involved with ninjas in the first place? It looked like he would need to watch their backs just in case. After all, one could never be too careful. Choji walked along the docks in calm steps. They were gathering information, so it would be best to appear calm, as not to make others nervous. He had seen the looks some of the villagers sent his way. Unlike the Hidden Leaf, these villagers weren't used to seeing many ninja around. That thing just wiped out everything. Choji turned his attention to the source of the noise, finding a group of men sitting around a round table on the outside of a restaurant. There were a few plates on their table with bits of food left, meaning that they were just chatting at the moment. Perfect, thought Choji as he moved closer to the group of men. One of the men laughed. Are you actually serious about this? Am I supposed to believe you? Don't be a fucking idiot, another man growled, tightening his grip on the glass of beer he held. You might have just gotten back, but everyone here is freaking out about that thing. Ask anybody and they'll tell you the same thing I did. Excuse me, Choji broke in. The group of men stopped their conversation, looking at Choji in a mixture of shock and annoyance. What does a ninja want with us? One of the men asked a bit bitterly. I only want to hear of this thing that's attacking your ships, Choji explained politely. One of the men crossed his arms, his scarred face looking at Choji's. He held the stare before breaking it and letting out a sigh. You don't seem like a bad person, so I'll tell you. You're a ninja, so you might be able to do something about that thing. The man exchanged glances with the others before clearing his throat. You see, kid, we were attacked by this horrible monster. We were just fishing when a giant whirlpool appeared beneath us. But that wasn't the worst. The man paused before taking a sip of his drink. This thing just broke out of the water before shooting the ship with something. Next thing we know, we're shooting through the air and land miles away from where we had just been. His expression hardened. It was by pure luck that a ship was sailing around where we landed. If it hadn't been for that, well, I wouldn't be telling you this story. I see, Choji nodded. Do you know of anyone who could take us there? The man broke into a laugh. Hate to break it to ya, but nobody around here is that stupid. Thanks for your help, Choji bowed slightly out of respect before beginning to walk away from the restaurant. His expression was serious as he walked. He had gotten some information on the beast, which he now thought was more likely to be real, but he hadn't found a way to get to it. They could walk there, but the strain would be too much for them. And in the case that there was a beast, then they would be too tired to take it down. Guess I'll go tell Naruto about this. Maybe he found a way to get there. With that last thought, Choji left the area, unaware of the two pairs of eyes watching him leave. Hinata walked through a crowded street with many shops and businesses around. Wave was a very peaceful place in her opinion. It reminded her a bit of Konoha in that aspect. Everyone walking around the streets with no problems of their own. She looked down, sadness written over her features as thoughts of her own problems filled her mind. Hinata wasn't ugly, or at least she hoped not. Naruto and Ino, she simply couldn't understand them. When had that bond formed exactly? She couldn't even remember a time when they were together when they were younger. Why did Naruto choose Ino instead of her? After Naruto's long trip, she hoped to have him come back with changed feelings. After all, time could change a person. Part of her knew that it was wrong to wish for their relationship to end, but she couldn't help it. Her feelings for Naruto were still there. The stinging feeling of tears gathering in her eyes broke her out of her train of thought. She wiped the gathered tears away before pushing those thoughts away. They weren't needed now. She was in the middle of a mission and had to be professional. Her attention turned to a few civilians gathered on the outside of a shop. She could hear their voices from where she stood and could make out the fear in which they spoke. Did you hear? That thing attacked merchant ships. Hinata walked closer to the crowd in order to hear them better. But they weren't any ships. They came from the Cloud Village. The Hyuga's eyes instantly widened, taking a few steps back instinctively. Cloud, the village that had tried to kidnap her once. She could still remember how she spent days crying herself to sleep out of fear, remembering the ninja about to get her. She swallowed hard before walking away from the crowd. Albeit a bit afraid, she knew that the others would help her if need be. She only needed to get to them soon. How's life been, kid? Tazuna asked with flushed cheeks as he took another gulp of his beverage. Naruto chuckled lightly as a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. I've been great, old man, he responded. What about you guys? Tazuna shrugged. Wave's doing great, well, except for that thing. The blonde's expression turned serious. I need a way to that thing, he explained. Do you know anyone that can take us there? Or at least give us a boat? Can't you just rent one? About that, Naruto trailed off, knowing that he was currently out of money. Let's just say that I don't really have the means to get one, at least legally, of course. Tazuna chuckled as he took another drink. Fine, I might know someone, but he's not normal like us. He's a bit odd. That's not really a problem, Naruto assured. It's not like we'll need to talk to him for too long anyway. Alright then, Tazuna sighed out. Go to the eastern docks. Look for the house on the peak of the hill overlooking the sea. Pretty easy to spot, there's even a statue there. Naruto grinned before standing up to leave. Thanks, old man. Just make sure to visit once you're done, he responded. Inari would probably like to see you again. Don't worry, I'll make sure to visit, Naruto affirmed before walking out of the bar. Now all he needed was to meet with his team. Naruto made it to the team's meeting spot, right in front of the inn they had stayed in the previous day. His brows furrowed upon getting there, finding that everyone was already there. Why are you guys here so early? He asked upon coming closer. This isn't even the time we're supposed to meet. We just found the information we needed quickly, Ino responded, with the other two ninja nodding in agreement. She turned her attention to Naruto, watching him expectantly. What did you find out? Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Not much, he admitted to them. I only learned that the monster was attacking fishermen. But I might have found us a boat. Really? Choji asked in surprise. Naruto nodded. It's not definite since I haven't met with the person, but it's likely that he'll give us one. He cast a look of seriousness at his team. What did you guys find out? Let's see if I understand this, Naruto began while raising a hand to prevent anyone from interrupting. That monster can create large whirlpools and fire attacks. It attacks ships that get close to it, and ended up doing the same to merchant cloud ships. Now there are some cloud ninja here, which means that they most likely came to investigate the disappearance of their ship. That's pretty much it, Ino assured with a nod. She dug both hands into the pockets of her trench coat before letting out a sigh. These cloud ninja won't make things easy. Naruto silently agreed while thinking of how to go about the situation. Ino had spotted the ninja, but they had apparently not seen her. Surprise was on their side, but then again, nobody in his group had the slightest clue as to what the cloud ninja would be doing. They could be only looking for the source of the attack or even attack the monster, for all he knew. Alright everyone, Naruto broke a short moment of silence before reaching behind his head and untying his headband. Take off your headbands, we don't want them to know where we're from. In case we run into them, we can have a conflict between the villages just because of this mission. Choji and Hinata took of their headbands, the Akimichi wearing it on his forehead, while the Hyuga wore it on her neck. Ino watched them from the side, not having a headband to take off herself, and chose to speak to Naruto. She still had a small question about all this. Naruto, she called. Naruto looked at Ino with a raised brow, giving the indication to speak. What do you really think about all of this? She looked firmly into his eyes, reminding him of how intense her gaze could be. I know you're a bit worried about this, so don't keep it all to yourself like you did before, okay? Naruto smiled. After all this time, Ino could still read him like a book. He didn't know whether to be afraid or glad to have someone read him so well, but, looking at the concerned expression on Ino's face, he found himself not minding as long as it was her. His expression softened as he took Ino's hand in his, caressing it with his thumb. She blushed at the sudden action before he spoke. I'm a little worried. But not too much, he continued, after seeing a look of worry wash over her face. All of you guys have grown a lot and I'm sure that you'll do great. It's just that the thought of facing Cloud doesn't sit well with me. Those guys are known for starting conflict. And I really don't want to be the reason for conflict. I was thinking the same thing, Ino commented as Naruto pulled his hand away from hers before unzipping his vest. She watched as he took out a single scroll before putting his katana sheath away and finally taking off his vest and sealing it into the scroll. Your vest too? Naruto nodded as he pocketed the scroll. I don't want them knowing my rank, it'll give me the edge if we're to fight. Them not knowing my rank, I mean. He put his sheath back in place before turning to the rest of his group. Alright guys, let's get going. We don't want those Cloud Ninja getting to the monster before us. The two Cloud Ninja walked along the docks of Wave. The female of the two appeared to be annoyed while the male seemed to be in a daze. Seriously, why did he have to call me, damn it? Just thinking about it pisses me off. The kunoichi glared at the space ahead of her in obvious rage. The other Cloud Ninja looked at his teammate oddly. He called you a he? It's no big deal, he spoke nonchalantly. The kunoichi glared, but he didn't seem to mind. Besides, you're not the most feminine person around, Karui. Karui delivered a hard punch to the shinobi's stomach, making him gasp for air before doubling over in pain. That'll show you, she growled before stomping away. I brought this on myself, he muttered while nursing his stomach. Come on, Oma! Karui yelled from the distance, let's go already. We have to find a lead on the boats. Oma followed after her, albeit a bit slower since his stomach was still in pain. I guess this is it, Naruto muttered skeptically. The rest of the group held the same expression, looking at Naruto in wonder. Are you sure this is it? Ino asked while looking at the home and wondering just what had possessed a person to put statues like that there. Naruto chuckled awkwardly. Tazuna had said something about a statue, not 4 statues. The home was simple. A handsome 2-story home with wooden walls. Pretty normal overall save for the statues surrounding it. They were statues of the original Team 7. On the left side of the house was a statue of Sasuke with his arms crossed, looking off in the distance. On the other side was a statue of Sakura, smiling with her hands crossed behind her back. The next statues only added to the awkwardness. A tall statue of a smiling Naruto was in front of the front door, legs spread wide to allow access into the house. Finally, to finish things off, was a giant statue of Kakashi with his feet on either side of the house, squatting right above it and giving a thumbs up. Just who the hell would make this? Ino muttered in repulsiveness. Choji looked at the statues with a twitching eye. Naruto noticed the quick glance Choji threw him, as if wondering if he would offend him by talking bad about the statues. Don't worry about it. Just say it, I'm looking for words to describe these things as well. Hinata had an embarrassed blush on her face. Do we really have to go in there? The leader quickly glanced around the area in order to see if anyone would see them walk into the building. Nothing, he turned to his group before nodding firmly, a look of panic on his face. Let's go in before anybody sees us. The group of ninja wasted no time in following the blonde to the front door. Naruto knocked at the door quickly, not wanting to risk anybody seeing them. Who is it? A voice asked from within the home. Naruto let out a sigh of relief before speaking. We're looking for a boat. Can we talk to you? There was nothing but silence for a few minutes before the door opened slowly, a single eye peeking through the half-closed door. Who are you guys? The man behind the door asked in suspicion. How did you find my home? Can you let us come in? Ino asked while looking out for anyone coming their way. The man hummed, pondering the thought for a few moments before closing the door. Damn it! Naruto was the first to react, knocking on the door loudly. Come on, let us in. I'm standing under my own crotch here. The door opened once again with the same brown eye studying the ninja. How do I know you're real? What dash? Naruto let out in pure shock. Ino slapped a hand to her face, not believing what was happening. We're real, Choji told the man with a polite smile. We're just here to ask for your help. The man studied them once more before fully opening the door. A man with short white hair stood before them. He had a short beard on his face and a scar running across his right cheek. He wore a plain gray shirt with light brown pants. So now you need me? He scoffed before crossing his arms. I knew you'd come crawling back to me. Choji looked at the man incredulously. Huh? Naruto ran a hand through his hair, looking at the man in annoyance. Tazuna sent us here, he began in an attempt to make the man understand. Tazuna, drunk bridge builder that said he knew you. He told us that you would help us. Tazuna? The man asked in recognition. Naruto's eyes lit up in relief, glad to see that the man was finally going to understand. Yeah, Tazuna. The man smiled before placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. How have you been? I haven't seen you in so long? How is your daughter doing? The blonde Chunin turned to his team in defeat, looking at them for advice. Ino gave him a shrug, almost as if telling him to just go with it. He shook his head, knowing that maybe he was reading too much into it. Turning to Ino once more, he found her nodding with a look of seriousness on her face. He let out a sigh before turning to the eccentric man once again. Yeah? She's fine. How are you, friend? Pretty good, he responded happily before going into his home and opening the door for them. Come on in, Tazuna. Don't be a stranger. I am a stranger, Naruto thought in alarm but followed nonetheless. His team fell into step behind him, standing awkwardly around the house. The man sat on a chair, looking at them oddly. Why have you brought me here? Naruto's right eye twitched before taking in a breath to calm himself. You brought us here, remember? I did. You did, Ino broke in with an annoyed look before her expression grew serious. Now tell us what we want to know. Why do you have those statues outside? The man chuckled before shrugging. They did something for Waves, so why not? He rose from his seat, taking a nearby cup and drinking its contents before setting it back down. Can I get you something to drink? We're good, Naruto answered before scratching the back of his neck nervously. I'm just here to see if you could lend a boat to my good friends. Sure, he replied almost instantly. It's at the bottom of the hill. There's a small cave there which I use as a dock. I don't sail anymore these days, so feel free to do whatever you want with that boat. Naruto felt guilty but knew that he was technically telling the truth. Tazuna had wanted them to get a boat, which meant that telling the old man that Tazuna wanted a boat for his friends wasn't a complete lie. We have to get going, Ino spoke up, having watched Naruto's internal debate. I'll see you later, Tazuna, the man waved as the group left his house. Once they left, he couldn't help but chuckle. Kids these days are too fun to joke with. He looked out the window of his home, watching the group moving down a set of stairs leading to the bottom of the hill. They're good kids though. Tazuna's going to laugh when I tell him all of this. A few hours had passed since the group finally found a way to move. It was a medium-sized boat with a white sail. The thing looked old and worn out, but it still worked fine and, thanks to Naruto's Winjutsu, he could increase the speed in which they moved at any given time. Setting the thing up had been a bit difficult, but they had eventually found a way to make it work. Naruto was leaning against the railing of the boat with Ino at his side. Choji took control of the wooden steering wheel, keeping their movement steady, though he appeared to be a bit bored at the lack of different scenery. Hinata stood against the single cabin of the boat, looking a bit bored herself. Where was this thing supposed to be? Ino asked Naruto after having enough of their aimless sailing. The blonde scowled as he looked around the ocean before narrowing his eyes in the distance. Wait a second, he muttered to Ino as he concentrated on the horizon. Ino looked at Naruto oddly before turning the same direction and finding the shadow of a faraway mass of land. You see it, right? Naruto asked her for assurance. Yeah, she responded, there's something big over there. Probably an island. The blonde grinned before glancing at Choji over his shoulder. Hey Choji! He called out over the loud wind, gaining the Akimichi's attention. Turn the ship rightwards, there's something over there. Got it, Choji complied as he turned the boat to the right before it began to shake uncontrollably. What the? Naruto and Ino stumbled under the boat's uncontrollable shaking, quickly gripping the railing tightly in order to keep from going overboard. What the hell is going on? Naruto let out in surprise as he glanced at the area in front of them to see the water not too far away begin to spin in place. His eyes widened in alarm before turning to Choji. Turn the ship around. There's a whirlpool up ahead. Choji quickly turned the steering wheel, but to no avail, as they were already being dragged by the whirlpool. What now, Naruto? The Akimichi asked in panic. Naruto gritted his teeth, not really having anything to get them out of the situation. Beside him, Ino took a firm hold of his arm in an attempt to get him to calm down and think of something. "Hinata!" Naruto called out once he thought of something. "Use your Byakugan to see what's causing this thing," said Hyuga. Stumbled over the boat with her Byakugan active. She made it to the railing where Naruto stood before looking at the water with a focused gaze. "There's something in there," she informed with a look of confusion on her face. "It's a large chakra signature." "There's someone in there?" Ino let out incredulously. No sooner than she said that, the water in front of them shot up, an enormous figure emerging from the ocean. The group looked at the towering figure in pure surprise, its dark blue scales and snake-like body highly visible now. It lowered its dragon-like head to stare at the group of ninja in rage, emitting a low growl with its piercing black eyes glaring into them. What is that?" Choji stammered in shock. "Is it the monster?" Hinata asked the group in a bit of fear. Ino gulped at the towering creature before regaining her composure and looking at Naruto for directions. "What the hell do we do now?" Naruto smirked before unsheathing his katana, its blade glistening with the sun's ray. "We've found the monster," he began as wind gathered around his blade, raising its sharpness and reach in a dull white glow. "Let's take it down. Everyone, follow me." Naruto jumped out of the boat with his team following after him. He made sure to land a safe distance away from the creature, and just enough to avoid being caught in the whirlpool. "I'm going to attack that thing head-on," Naruto announced while throwing a quick glance at his team. "Choji, as soon as you see an opening, I want you to attack with as much power as you can. Hinata, stay with Choji and make sure he's not attacked on his way to that thing." He turned back to the beast before breaking into a run, but not before throwing one last look at Ino. "You're coming with me. Let's go." "Right." The group chorused as Ino ran after Naruto. The blonde couple charged at the creature, running over the whirlpool though managing to keep their footing through using more concentration on their water walking. Naruto leapt at the creature, swinging at its exposed neck once close enough. The beast bent its large body oddly before snaking under the swing. The blonde was left airborne but quickly turned his body to watch as the creature neared Ino, who was already running through hand signs. "Water style, water dragon jutsu!" Ino exclaimed as the water in front of her rose before taking the shape of a dragon and shooting at the beast. The beast dove into the water in an instant, dodging Ino's attack without much trouble. She cursed before looking at the area beneath her, trying to catch a sign of the beast. Naruto landed on the water with a plan already forming on his head. "Ino, I want you to use that jutsu again," he called over to her with a confident grin visible on his face. "Use it at the same time I use my own." "All right," she answered just as the beast emerged from the water between them. Almost in sync, the two blondes ran through hand signs. Wind/water style, wind/water dragon jutsu. A dragon of pure wind formed in the air above Naruto, while one made of water formed in front of Ino. The two launched their attacks, shooting at the beast in a fast speed. The beast let out a growl before spinning in place, creating large powerful waves around it. The two attacks crashed against the waves, dispersing with a shockwave though not stopping the large waves. "Shit," Naruto cursed as he watched the large waves near him. Ino ran through more hand signs before jumping high in the air and slamming both hands on the air beneath her, summoning jutsu. Smoke gathered beneath the airborne Ino. Two large broad wings emerged from the smoke, followed by a large yellow beak and the brown feathered body of a large eagle. Ino landed on its back before rushing at Naruto, the eagle swooping down and using its talons to pull Naruto out of the way and into the sky. "Are you alright, Naruto?" Ino yelled from the top of the eagle. Naruto gulped when seeing just how sharp the eagle's claws were. "Why yeah," he yelled back before getting over his initial shock and turning back to the creature. "Drop me off on top of that thing, I'll kill it in a single attack." "Alright," she agreed as the eagle began to move towards the beast, its broad wings creating gusts as it soared through the sky. The beast watched the incoming eagle and turned its attention to the other two ninja. It struck its tail out of the water before swinging it in front of the two ninja, creating a large wave that threatened to swallow them up. "Ino!" Naruto yelled, trying to get her attention. "On it!" she answered loudly as the eagle stopped mid-flight before flapping both its wings at the two ninja. A powerful gust shot at Choji and Hinata, sending them both through the air just in time to avoid being swallowed by the wave. The eagle proceeded to fly towards them, reaching them quickly before catching them on its back. "Thanks," Choji answered with a bit of panic left on his voice. Meanwhile, Naruto turned back to the beast to see it gathering a large amount of water on its mouth, molding it and spinning it at a fast pace. The ball compressed into something much smaller before the beast took aim at them. Naruto's eyes widened in shock before turning in Ino's direction. Ino, get us out of here quick. The kunoichi raised a brow before turning to the beast, watching as it gathered water. It's not just water, Hinata informed with her Byakugan active, there's chakra all over it. It's more like a concentrated amount of chakra mixed with water for form. The beast shot its powerful beam at the large eagle summon. Naruto gritted his teeth before putting his katana in front of him, while hoping to be able to take such an attack. A large shockwave rocked the area as the beam met Naruto's blade. The blonde let out a grunt as he struggled to keep a hold of his blade, absorbing the chakra of the beam with its seals burning bright in color and shaking uncontrollably. Damn it, I'm not going to be able to hold this off, he closed his eyes and thought before they shot open. Got it, he muttered to himself before taking his left hand off of the katana, instantly letting out a grunt upon feeling the pressure against his right arm. He ran through hand signs with his left hand before putting it to his lips. Wind style, devastation. He let out most of his chakra with the attack, dropping his hold on the blade as the gust of air shot out of his mouth. The powerful wind pushed against the highly unstable blade, taking it a fair distance away from them before it finally reached its peak. Hang on, guys! He yelled to his team as the blade exploded due to all the chakra. Giant waves formed on the area, powerful winds shot in all directions, and a powerful shockwave rocked the area, pushing everything on its path away. The four ninja were left defenseless as the powerful shockwave sent them hurling through the air in no clear direction. Damn it, Naruto cursed as he clenched his eyes in pain. His head hurt badly, but he didn't know why. His mind was brought back to the times in which he would train with Jiraiya. The sage would sometimes train him until he dropped in order to improve his resistance even more. This resulted in him waking up with painful headaches from time to time, accompanied with his whole body aching. The blonde let out a breath before adjusting himself on whatever he was laying on. His brows furrowed almost instantly, his face itching slightly with whatever he was laying on. He brought a hand to his head before opening his eyes to be greeted by sand and a few palm trees. Where the hell am I? He pushed himself off the sand before getting to a kneeling position, his eyes narrowing as he took in his surroundings. Recognition flashed through his features before he stood up abruptly. His head ached even more, but he ignored it since there were more important matters at the moment. His team wasn't with him. He was alone in the shore and, as he turned to the sea, knew that getting out wouldn't be easy since he could see many whirlpools in the distance. He turned back to the unknown place. It was an island, though he didn't know how big it was. He was currently on the shore overlooking the sea and an area filled with all kinds of trees. A dirt road could be seen from where he stood, but it was pretty worn and had a few plants growing on it. This place must be deserted, he concluded before checking to see if all his equipment was in place. He stopped momentarily on his sheath before remembering that his katana had been destroyed. Naruto turned to a large tree before climbing it hurriedly. The moon illuminating the night sky was proof enough that he had been unconscious for hours, and since his team hadn't found him, then that probably meant that they were unconscious as well or still looking for him somewhere. He made it to the top of the tree only for his eyes to widen in surprise. The island was huge. The tree overlooked most of the place, and he could even see what looked like a village in the distance. What happened here? The place was destroyed. Buildings were reduced to bits, several craters could be seen around the village, and parts of the heavily wooded area were just beginning to grow. He wondered if a fire had done the damage, but dismissed it as he turned to see the only building that appeared not to be destroyed. It looked like the top of a tower with a few pieces missing, though it still stood. He couldn't really make out the rest of the village since it was dark and gave up on it. He still had to find his team after all. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared at his side before taking off in different directions. The real Naruto watched them leave before dropping down the tree and getting into a meditating position. Finding his team was his first priority, and he would do so at all costs, regardless of what his teacher had suggested. Besides, his headache would probably lessen if he used it. Ino woke up to a stinging feeling on her right leg. Her eyes shot open before looking at her leg to see what was wrong. She let out a gasp upon seeing her leg, having it stained with dried blood and sporting a large gash. Her medical training kicked in, and she quickly began to close the wound while wondering just what had happened to them after the fight with the beast. Her summon hadn't been able to avoid the attack, but Naruto had used his blade to absorb most of it before it exploded. After that, everything was blank, which probably meant that they had fainted soon after, probably from the impact against whatever they landed on. She looked around the area to see a tree not too far from her, making her come to the conclusion that she had landed against it and hurt her leg. Her chakra continued to close the wound as she scanned the area for anything else. The area around her was filled with trees of all sizes. She couldn't really see much, but she could make out a building in the distance. She immediately discarded the possibility of having landed in waves since the town didn't have so many trees around it. Might as well look around, she muttered to herself before running through hand signs and slamming both hands on the ground to her side. The area filled with smoke before a small eagle appeared at her side, looking at her for instructions. I'm just going to scout the area. The eagle seemed to nod as Ino ran through hand signs before aiming at the summon, mind transfer jutsu. Ino took over the bird before flying up in the air. This particular summon animal was really useful when it came to scouting, and for that reason the Yamanaka had made a contract with them. Of course, it had taken time to adjust to how to move around, but she had gotten used to it after a while. They were in an island. It was fairly large and had a large village in the distance, though it appeared to be destroyed. She could make out several whirlpools surrounding the island and knew that leaving wouldn't be an easy task. She got ready to release the jutsu before catching movement through the trees. She moved closer to the ground to see Naruto moving from tree to tree. She was instantly relieved before watching the area closely in order to know where to go. After making a mental map, she released the jutsu and found herself back on her body. Ino rose to her feet, her leg now feeling a lot better, before running up a near tree, now knowing where to go. Naruto ran through the woods with a place in mind. He had been able to pinpoint Ino's location easily and was making his way to her. Of course, he had clones going to meet with the rest of his team and tell them to meet on the destroyed village. It was hard to miss, and finding his team there wouldn't be too hard considering that there would be almost nothing blocking their view. Naruto, over here! He was snapped out of his thoughts by Ino's voice. Instantly stopping on a tree branch, he turned his head to see Ino moving towards him with a relieved expression on her face. Ino! Naruto greeted with a smile as she landed on the same tree branch as him. She smiled and gave him a quick hug before looking around through furrowed brows. I'm glad you're alright. Do you have any idea where we are? All I found out was that we're on an island. Yeah, that's all I know too. Naruto couldn't help but sigh before crossing his arms with a thoughtful expression. It's probably the thing we saw on the ship. Ino nodded, though she held a skeptical look on her face. It makes sense, but for the explosion to send us that far. Who knows? Naruto shrugged. We might be on another island for all I know, even if the chances of us missing one on the way here are slim. Besides, my katana was able to hold a lot of chakra, so the explosion might have been strong enough to send us all the way to the faraway island. Then what do we do now? She couldn't help but ask. Finding a way out of the place would be tough, considering that the place was most likely deserted and surrounded by whirlpools. Naruto scratched the back of his neck and thought, we could probably find a boat if we look enough, but getting through those whirlpools is going to be tough. Maybe there's an area in which there's no whirlpools. Maybe, Ino muttered in thought, but it's most likely on the other side of the island, but it's pretty big. We have to cross the village to get there. I don't think we'll make it in one day. Don't worry about it, he responded with a grin. I don't think that the beast is going anywhere soon. I'm sure the explosion hurt it too. For now, let's just look for a boat and a way with no whirlpools. Then let's get going, Ino responded as the two began to move towards the destroyed town. Choji sat against an old building with a pensive look on his face. Not too long ago he had run into a clone of Naruto that had told him to follow him to the destroyed village. He had gotten there not too long ago and found Hinata already there, but looking a bit tired. She was currently leaning against a building with a few beads of sweat trailing down her face. He had no idea what was wrong with her, but guessed that she had gotten injured when landing on the island. If that was the case, then Ino had to hurry since she was the medic of the team. The Naruto clone had long since vanished without any other words than, wait here. That had been over an hour ago, and he was getting impatient. If they had yet to come, then they were probably in trouble, and he wanted to go look for them just to make sure they were all right. They're over there. Choji turned his attention to the source of the noise to see a smiling Ino and an annoyed Naruto. He let out a chuckle, knowing that Ino had done something to get on his nerves. Hinata smiled wearily while holding a hand to her right side. Good, they're here. Ino was the first to arrive and placed both hands on her hips with a victorious look on her face. Nice to see you guys again, she greeted before turning back to Naruto. See, I told you to take that left turn. Naruto crossed his arms before letting out a huff. I knew exactly where we were. What's with men being so stubborn about directions? She let out tiredly before turning to the other two ninja. So, are you guys alright? Choji shook his head before motioning to Hinata with his head. Hinata doesn't look too well. I am fine, Hinata let out with a polite smile. Ino frowned before moving towards Hinata and looking her over, noticing the way she held her side. let me check on you, Hinata. It might be serious. Don't worry, I'm fine, she assured weakly. Just trust me, Hinata. Take off your jacket. The Hyuga blushed a bright red. I can't do that, not H here, she fidgeted as she glanced over at Naruto and Choji. Understanding flashed over Ino's eyes before she turned to the two males of the team with a frown. Get lost, you two. I have to check over Hinata. The two males flinched at her tone before turning their backs on her, though not moving. What are you still doing here? Where do we go? Naruto asked with his back to them. Ino let out a sigh. Just go explore the village or something, we'll catch up later. The two ninja began to walk away, not daring to turn back since it would probably anger Ino. The medic of the team turned her attention back on her current patient, a serious look on her face. All right. Now you can take off your jacket. Hinata complied, though the blush never left her face. She pulled off her jacket to reveal a large bruise on her right side. There was some bleeding, but it wasn't something she couldn't handle. All right, Hinata, I'm just going to use my chakra to heal the wound. It should only take a couple of minutes to get rid of the pain, Ino spoke with an air of professionalism as her hands glowed a green color before putting them over the wound. Thanks, Hinata let out timidly. Ino only nodded and focused on the wound, all the while trying not to feel jealous of how much Hinata had developed. I don't get why they had to make sure we were away, Choji complained as he and Naruto walked along the destroyed village. The two were currently walking on a stone path with a few plants growing on its cracks. Large pieces of rubble covered large part of it, while the buildings around them in ruins, with a few appearing to have been burnt. The building Naruto had seen earlier stood proudly on the distance, almost like a symbol of durability to the destroyed place. It's not like we couldn't just look away or just covered our eyes. Naruto chuckled before digging his hands into his pockets. Well, Choji, it's like Jiraiya-sensei taught me. Women stick together through anything, mostly during times when they really understand each other, he explained in a wise voice. During this times men take the worst of it, and can sometimes end up getting hurt. So us leaving was really something good. Really? Choji asked incredulously. Really, Naruto nodded with a grin. I saw it happen a couple of times when I was out of the village. So for future reference, never try to peek at a girl when she's with another, and of course, never get between them when they're arguing. You really learned a lot on your trip. Naruto smiled sheepishly. Let's just say I learned what not to do when seeing Jiraiya-sensei get into all kinds of trouble. A comfortable silence filled the area as the two continued to walk. Naruto glanced around the area with an almost sad look on his face. He didn't know exactly what had happened, but it looked like hundreds of people had been murdered, almost as if they had been attacked from all sides. Naruto's eyes widened as he stopped dead on his tracks, looking around the area in pure shock. An old conversation ran through his mind as he glanced around. Since we aided Konoha, other villages saw the opportunity to attack us. At first they were no trouble, but when they attacked us at the same time, Whirlpool stood no chance. Whirlpool, he muttered to himself. Choji turned to Naruto in confusion. Is something wrong, Naruto? This is Whirlpool. He glanced around the rubble with a scowl on his face. What am I thinking? He scolded himself. He was just overthinking things. The only thing that mattered now was finding a boat and getting rid of the beast before Cloud made its move. He turned back to Choji before waving him off. Nothing's wrong. Are you sure? Choji asked with a raised brow. Naruto smiled before scratching the back of his head. Yeah, everything's alright. I just thought I saw something. Let's just get going for now. Alright then, the Akimichi decided not to press on, knowing already how Naruto liked to keep to himself on certain situations. Omoi dug his hands into his pockets as he impatiently watched as the man in front of him counted the money he had just been given. Karui stood next to him looking really annoyed in contrast to his cool demeanor. Alright, she's all yours then, the black-haired man nodded to them as he pocketed the money. The Cloud Ninja glanced at the boat they had just purchased. It was a simple wooden boat with the essentials for travel, nothing great, but it would be able to take them out to sea. Let's go, Karui, he nodded to his teammate. Karui scowled. Who said you were in charge? Omo only rolled his eyes before beginning to move towards the boat. Wait, you can't go yet! The man yelled in slight panic, making the two Cloud Ninja look at him with frowns. And why's that? Karui asked a bit heatedly. Just look, the man pointed at the distant star-filled sky with many clouds on the horizon. You might be new to sailing, so make sure to remember clouds like those. Omoi watched in interest as the man continued to speak. Those are storm clouds. They might not look like much from here, but I guarantee that there will be a storm later on tonight. A storm that your new ship won't be able to sail in. The kunoichi glared at the man, crossing her arms in anger. So you sold us a piece of shit. What? No. The man responded nervously, taking a few steps back. Don't worry, Omoy assured before beginning to walk away, with Karui doing the same a few moments later. We'll find somewhere to rest for tonight and move out in the morning, he told the kunoichi, and tomorrow we'll end this mission. Naruto walked among the ruins of the village with his full team trailing behind him. Ino and Hinata had joined him and Choji not too long ago. Hinata looked better, though she still seemed in pain, which is why the group decided on finding a place to spend the night, not to mention that it was starting to rain. They were currently on their way to the only standing building in the area. It had large stone walls and gave the impression of being something grand even if it was only a story tall. The building was near a large river, though they didn't see where it went. We'll look for a ship tomorrow, Naruto announced as they approached the entrance of the building, a tall stone door with markings imprinted into it. Sounds good, Choji admitted with a small smile. I'm still a bit shaken up by the fall here. Ino nodded in agreement. My head still hurts a bit, so a rest should be nice. Naruto approached the door before placing a hand on it. Almost instantly the door began to open by itself, making the group take a few steps back in surprise. What was that? Choji let out in surprise. Naruto watched as the door fully opened to reveal pure darkness, only a bit of light coming into the place. He clenched his jaw before walking into the building with a hand gliding over his kunai holster. Again, almost in single instant, the building trembled before torches lit up the inside of the building. It had large gray walls with few windows, pillars among the room Naruto stood on, and many old paintings adorning the walls. Ino looked at Naruto oddly. Did you do that? No, he responded with his eyes darting around the area. I didn't. He threw a quick glance at Hinata before speaking. Hinata, use your Byakugan and fish out whoever's here. Right, Hinata complied as her Byakugan activated and searched around the area. Her eyes widened in surprise when seeing many chains of chakra around the wall, connecting with each of the many torches on the room and the large stone door. There's nobody here, the Hyuga informed, the team's stance relaxing upon hearing the news. Then how did the door open? And what about the torches? Ino asked wearily. Hinata focused her gaze on the chains of chakra. There's many chains of chakra on the walls, she explained. They connect to each of the torches, which means that the chains are the things that lit them. Then what activated the torches? Naruto wondered out loud with a deep scowl. Ino shrugged. Maybe it was us. I mean, the thing probably reacts to people, right? That sounds about right, Choji agreed. Right, that's probably how this building works, Hinata added. Naruto looked around, still not totally convinced but understanding that his team still needed rest. Fine, let's spend the night here. He proceeded to make a few clones and have them guard the building's entrance just in case of an attack, be it from another person or some kind of wildlife. The group of ninja took out a few scrolls before opening their contents. Each ninja took out their own sleeping bag before laying them on the floor of the building. Ino put her sleeping bag down before turning her attention to Naruto, who appeared to be a bit worried. She walked over to him before placing a hand on his shoulder, his body relaxing slightly upon her touch. What's wrong, Naruto? Naruto let out a sigh before turning to his girlfriend. I don't know, I guess I'm a bit skeptical about this place being empty, he admitted before taking Ino's hand on his. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. Don't let it worry you, she assured with a smile, squeezing Naruto's hand for assurance. Hinata already looked around and there's nothing to worry about. You're right, he smiled before letting go off her hand and sitting down on his sleeping bag. Let's get some sleep for now. Ino nodded before laying down on her sleeping bag. Right, and once this mission's done you're gonna take me out on a date. Am I? He asked teasingly, earning a look from Ino. He chuckled as a smile formed on his face. Alright, we'll go somewhere. I was planning on taking you out but I didn't expect this mission. Me either, Ino agreed as a yawn escaped her mouth. Night, Naruto. Naruto got into a comfortable position before letting out a yawn. Good night, Ino. He closed his eyes though he still felt uneasy. Not about the place being empty, he trusted Hinata's abilities, but of something else. He felt as though he was missing something but he just couldn't place it. He was brought back to his initial thoughts on the place. Of the possibility of it being the destroyed whirlpool that Red Death had talked about in a mission that seemed to be ages ago. Ino had looked really worn out, and he didn't want to worry her. That's why he had simply dropped the matter without much hesitation. Another yawn escaped him before he let go of those thoughts. He didn't feel like thinking anymore. It was been a long day and all he wanted to do was sleep. He would take care of things in the morning. The following day saw the group of shinobi already discussing on what to do. They were still in the same building as before and had woken up not too long ago. All of them felt recharged and ready to go, but there was still the matter of what they would be doing. We need to find a boat, Naruto spoke as he ran a hand through his hair. His spikes bounced back to their original spot as he crossed his arms. Any ideas on where we could find one? The rest of the group looked at each other for ideas, but none of them spoke. It looked like they didn't have any ideas either. At times like this he, the leader of the group, had to make a choice. He closed his eyes as he went over the little information they had on the place. It was surrounded by whirlpools, destroyed with only one building remaining, a river behind said building. Naruto grinned, having figured what to do. Alright, listen up guys, he began in a clear voice, we're going to need to split up. One group looks for a boat on the shores and the other will move deeper into this building. Ino looked at Naruto with a bit of surprise, there's more to this building? He nodded before walking towards one of the pillars holding up the place. My clones got bored yesterday and began to look around the building, he explained before placing a hand on the pillar, fading upon touch to reveal a hidden staircase going down. There's a river behind this place, so there might be some kind of ship here. Choji seemed pleased with the idea. Who's on each team? Naruto moved away from the pillar before throwing Hinata a glance, checked to see how deep it goes. She complied as her Byakugan activated while he turned to Choji with a pensive look, I'm not sure about the team. You and I have good physical strength while Ino has ninjutsu, and I'm not sure about Hinata. I can't see anything, Hinata called out with her eyes squinted on the pillar. The group turned to the Hyuga with Naruto furrowing his brows. He walked over to the pillar, narrowing his eyes in thought before glancing at Hinata. Put your hand on the pillar. The Hyuga complied and placed her hand on the solid pillar, not revealing the staircase. But how? Ino watched the scene with an analyzing eye. Naruto opening the door upon touch, torches working after he entered the building first, and now this, a secret stairway that only opened for him. This place only works for you, Naruto, she deadpanned. He turned to her with a serious look on his face, silently telling her that he was thinking the same. Ino, try to open the stairway with Choji, he ordered just to test her theory. He scratched the back of his head when seeing that they couldn't get it open either. If he was the only one that could enter, then having someone with him as backup would be a bad idea. He would need to go alone. It wasn't like he didn't trust his abilities, and besides, there were really high chances that there was a boat there. Be it some merchant ship or a small getaway boat, there had to be something there. He nodded to himself before turning to his team once more. I'm going deeper into the building while the rest of you go look around the shores. He watched as his team tried to object, but he held up a hand to stop them. I'm the only one that can enter this place. Having two of us would be pointless. You guys could also cover more ground if there's three of you. Ino stayed silent. They were shinobi on a mission and Naruto was only trying to get them out of there as soon as possible. Her personal feelings would be pushed aside for now. She had been to a lot of missions and knew decisions like these had supposed to be taken even if she didn't like the idea of him going off alone. It's not like there's anybody here anyway, she told herself as Choji and Hinata began to leave the building after word from Naruto. The couple looked at each other as their teammates left. Be careful, Naruto, Ino spoke after a moment of silence. Naruto smiled before nodding at her. Don't worry about it, Ino, there's probably nothing to worry about. His eyes followed after her retreating figure, a small smile forming on his face. We still have to go on that date. I'll make sure to end things here fast. Ino giggled to herself before turning back to Naruto. No, you won't. Take your time and be careful or there won't be a date at all, she stated truthfully with a smile. He simply chuckled before nodding, watching as she left the building. His mouth formed into a thin line as he moved towards the pillar, placing a hand on it, and watching as it disappeared to reveal the stairway. Here goes nothing, he muttered to himself before going down the stairs. Ino, Choji and Hinata moved through the trees of the deserted island. The Hyuga was on the front of the group to scout the area further ahead, while Ino and Choji stayed behind for support in case something came up. The area up ahead is destroyed too, Hinata informed as they continued to run. She squinted her eyes on the area ahead before speaking. There are a few trees just beginning to grow while there's some old trunks on the ground. Ino frowned. Just what had caused all of the damage to the island? There was the chance of Abijah having gone free and destroying the place, but there would be more parts of the woods destroyed, and some kind of path to where it went after being done with the village. That only left war. Some kind of war must have happened and the village was attacked. It was still a far-fetched idea since she didn't think a single village could do so much damage. The team continued to move through the place with Aino thinking that she was close to a conclusion as to how the village ended up in such a state. Naruto continued down the stairs with his eyes alert for any sort of movement. He didn't know how deep underground he had gone, and it was starting to get cool around him. So far he had passed many rooms. These rooms had nothing but old statues and paintings that couldn't be seen due to the little amount of light. The statues were on the odd side, being crafted to look like some kind of warrior with a sword on hand and a steel helmet on its head. At first he had been quite alert around them, somehow expecting them to move, but eventually dropped his guard. Each room had been just like the previous, and he had grown used to seeing the human-sized statues. Speaking of which, he was growing tired of passing by each floor. At some time he had even thought that he was being taken back to the first floor upon reaching a new floor. Is there an end to this? Naruto wondered as he kept going down the stairs. They were put in a circular manner, and each level of stairs seemed infinite now. He looked down to see another floor a few steps away. A frown formed on his face as he took the last steps and, to his shock, see no other level of steps. This was the last floor. Finally! He cheered inside his head as he broke into a happy grin before glancing around this new room. It was much like the others, having statues and painting on the walls, but there was a big difference. In front of him stood a stone wall with writing on it, and a small tablet next to it. He approached the wall before reading over its contents. The trial starts here. Show your intelligence and power. Don't back down at any moment. That is the way of the Uzumaki. Naruto took a step back as he read over the wall again and again. This was the home to his ancestors. His first thoughts had been correct. He was on Whirlpool. No, he berated himself as he shook his head, this isn't the time to think of that. I have to look for a boat. His expression grew serious as he glanced at the tablet. Without much thinking he placed a hand on it to feel its texture, but it sunk under his hand. A rumbling sound echoed through the room as the stone wall before him began to open, splitting into two with both sides disappearing into their respective walls. Dust emitted from the walls and Naruto shielded his eyes as he studied the new room. It was small but had bookshelves filled with scrolls on either side. The wall standing in front of him had a katana on display. It had a gray and white hilt with the blade being a black color but having a silver edge. It was curved on the end and appeared to be well made. He walked into the room and found the wall behind the katana to have writing as well. Take all of this, you'll need it. Naruto nodded to himself before using a single-hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu, 4 clones appeared on his side. He dug into his vest's pockets before taking out 4 carrying scrolls. Handing them out to his clones, Naruto gave his order, put all of the scrolls into the scroll I just gave you. After you're done, give them to me and dispel. The clones nodded at him before moving to different sections of the small room and sealing the scrolls into theirs while Naruto turned his attention to the katana. He walked over to it, not able to stop himself from feeling a bit of excitement. A grin etched on his face as he reached for it, but, just as he was about to touch the hilt, a clone tapped him on the shoulder. We're done, boss, the clone informed as it handed him its scroll before disappearing. The other's clones did the same as Naruto pocketed each scroll. He made sure they were safely stored before turning back to the katana. It was then that he noticed that it came with a sheath safely placed under the weapon. The sheath was a black color, but he didn't have time to admire it as he placed it on his back eagerly. With no more interruptions, he took the katana on hand, admiring how well made it was. Just then the ground began to shake violently, dust and debris falling from the roof of the room. What the hell? He let out before turning back to the wall and noticing more writing. But remember that the more you take, the harder the trial. A fucking course, he growled before running out of the small room just as the rumbling stopped. His brows furrowed in confusion as he stood in the middle of the dark room, wondering just what had happened. He didn't have to wait for an answer as water began to come out of holes in the wall he hadn't seen earlier due to the lack of light. His eyes shot up in alarm as the water began to fill the room rapidly. He quickly turned to the stairs but froze when one of the statues trembled before turning to look at him through bright red eyes. More statues began to move as the whole place lit up, revealing hundreds of holes on the wall with water pouring out of them. All statues began to move towards him, swords raised and ready to strike. Naruto took a few steps back before sheathing his new katana. The water now reached his ankles, telling him that if he didn't hurry then he would be dead. Using chakra to stand on the water, not wanting to have his movements slowed, He began to run through hand signs before placing both hands on the ground. Earth-style dark swamp. The ground beneath the statues turned to mud and began to swirl inwards, taking them all in as well as a large portion of water. With a bit of silent cheering, Naruto quickly made for the stairs before moving up the stairs. He soon made it to the next floor when his senses suddenly shot up in alarm. Wasting no time, he leaned into a crouch before jumping to his right and into the new room just as a heavy metal sword swung past where he had just been. A few steps broke under the powerful blow as Naruto noticed where he had landed. He was surrounded by statues, all of them ready to attack, as the water continued to raise. Damn, he cursed when noticing more of those holes in this room as well, already beginning to drip with water. The Chunin quickly ran through hand signs once more as wind gathered around him, wind-style, slicing winds. Blades of wind shot at the gathered statues, slicing them to pieces as he turned to the stairs. His eyes narrowed when seeing two statues blocking the way before charging. He pointed a hand at them, a blade of wind shooting their way and cutting them in half. He made it to the stairs just as the place began to shake violently once more. His jaw clenched as he gripped the railing of the stair to keep from falling. The shaking continued as he looked down the stairs to see the water raising rapidly. He gritted his teeth before running up the stairs once again, the shaking stopping a few moments later. Thankfully, the next few rooms had no statues blocking the path. He had no such luck on the following room, however, finding a few statues standing on the stairs with their weapons raised. He frowned before moving away from the stairs and glancing around the area. A relieved smile formed on his face when noticing that it was one of the first rooms he had entered. This particular room was a lot bigger than the previous ones, holding more statues and having more holes on the walls. Naruto unsheathed his katana as the statues gathered around him. Wind gathered around the blade as he charged at the closest statue and cut it cleanly in half, both sides dropping on the ground before he raised his blade to parry an incoming swipe from one of the statues. He jumped away from the statues as more wind gathered around him. The sound of incoming water rung on his ears, but he kept calm. If he lost his cool, then he was done for. "I'm done with this," he growled as the wind around him began to swirl violently around his blade. "Take this." He swung his blade as a wave of wind shot out of it, cutting through the statues with ease and pushing others aside. More statues moved towards him and he quickly used his free hand to form a hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared at his side, all of them with blades on their hands. Naruto pointed at the statues before shouting his order, "Go!" The clones charged at the many statues, cutting through them with their blades sharpened by wind. Some were dispersed by the many statues, but the clones pressed on, giving Naruto the opportunity to make a run for the stairs. Another group of statues moved in front of the real Naruto, blocking his way as they broke into a charge. Quick to think, Naruto ran through hand signs before reaching for a kunai and throwing it at the incoming statues. The kunai turned to hundreds as it sailed through the air, stabbing into the statues as the rain of kunai kept on going. Naruto smirked as the horde of kunai took down the last of the statues blocking his path before he ran to the stairs once more. His clones continued to fight but were being overwhelmed by the statues. He didn't turn back as he quickly moved up the stairs while sheathing his blade. He formed a single seal as he ran, eyes sharp and pure alert, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Stopping dead on his tracks, 5 clones appeared before Naruto. "Go up ahead and clear the way of any statues," he ordered as the clones ran up the stairs. Naruto threw a glance at the area under him to see it filling up with water even faster. He continued his run before the memories of a clone hit him, having been dispersed upon reaching the next floor. Another memory hit him, this time of a clone being pierced through the chest. He paid the memory no mind and continued on moving. He was close now, he could feel it. The path ahead was clear, and he only needed to move faster. The last 3 memories hit him at once, the 3 clones having been dispersed upon reaching the final room. His eyes narrowed as a Rasengan formed on his hand. Statues blocked the path to the stairs as Naruto leapt at them while jabbing the Rasengan into one's chest, digging into the statue before sending it flying away. He followed with a series of hand signs before putting a hand to his mouth. Water style, raging waves. A powerful shot of water emitted from his lips and pushed the last statues away just as he felt water around his feet. He sped his pace as he ran the last steps of the building before finally jumping out of the pillar, rolling with the momentum and managing a kneeling stance. His breathing was heavy as he looked at the pillar he had come out of, expecting to see it overflowing with water, but to his surprise it remained unchanged. After a few quiet moments he allowed himself to relax, dropping his shoulders slightly and sitting on the ground with a sigh of relief. He leaned his body back, supporting himself with his arms as he glanced around the room in which he had left only a few hours ago. That was close, he chuckled with a weary smile. He dropped on the ground with his arms extended, ignoring the uncomfortable feeling of the blade on his back. His eyes closed as he regained his breath before hearing rumbling once more. He was on his feet instantly, looking around the area rapidly. Everything stayed still before the wall opposite of the entrance began to rumble. Part of the wall began to open up, much like the wall on the very bottom of the building. Dust emitted from it as the two stone walls opened up to reveal a secret room. Eyes focused for any hostile movement, Naruto entered the new room to find it to be some kind of indoor harbor. It was a spacious room with a pool of water covering most of it, and, more importantly, a boat floated on it. So that's what all the water was for, he muttered to himself as the place began to rumble once more, this time opening a wall in front of the ship. Like a gate, it led to the river behind the building. This must have been some kind of secret way for them to escape, he mused before smiling happily. He had found not only the boat, but a new katana and many scrolls, though he still didn't know what they held. It looked like his current mission had been accomplished. Now all he needed was to find his team. Omo kept a frown on his face as he and Karui sailed through the seas around Wave. It had been a few hours since they had sailed off and they had yet to run into anything. He was starting to think that maybe the beast had been a one-time occurrence, or that maybe it just left. Either way, he knew that if they didn't find anything soon, then there would be trouble. Not from his village or superiors, but from his teammate. It wasn't like he couldn't do anything against her, but she could find a way to get on his nerves rather easily. So he wished for anything to come up, since his teammate was starting to get impatient, judging from the way her hands were crossed over her chest. She had never been one for patience, instead being the complete opposite, rash and hot-headed. Karui was a good enough ninja, not that he'd ever tell her, but her temper would get them into trouble if pushed enough. "Where the hell is that thing?" Karui complained from the deck. Almost simply continued to sail the boat, not wanting to get caught up in an argument. "How long have we been out here?" "A few hours," Olmo responded calmly while looking at the sea and noticing something on the distance. With his attention taken to the thing, he tried to make out what it was. It appeared to be a large island. He looked at a map he had set near him and fought the urge to smile contentedly. They were around the area the old man that had sold them the boat told them not to go to, since, apparently, nobody could get in there since it was surrounded by whirlpools. He figured that whirlpools were the key to this mission. Not only did this island have them, but the sea monster did as well, meaning that the two were linked somehow. The ship turned in the direction of the island, sailing with the wind and picking up speed. Karui turned to Omoy with a quizzical look on her face. "Where are we going now?" Omoy pointed at the island with his free hand. "We're going to that island. The monster should be there." Ino, Hinata and Choji walked along the shore of the island. Its sand glistened against the sun's rays as the group moved through it. Many pieces of wood filled the area, with a few rusty pieces of metal here and there. It looked like the site of a battle, as if a group of ninja had entered the island through there and fought on the same shore in which they stood now. Hinata looked around with her Byakugan for any kind of ship they could use, but found nothing but destroyed planks of wood. "Where should we go next?" Choji asked the two kunoichi as he looked around the place in vain. Ino pursed her lips as she crossed her arms. "I guess we could just move along the shore and hope to find something," she shrugged before turning to the sea with a calculating eye. If someone had made it to shore, then that meant that there was a way in and out of the island around there, but she couldn't see any. All she saw was the same whirlpools surrounding the shore with no sign of any passageway. Her eyes widened as a thought struck her. "Hinata," she called out while pointing at the faraway whirlpools, "could you scan that place with your Byakugan?" Hinata seemed a bit confused by the request but complied. Her brows rose in surprise as she scanned the area, finding a large amount of chakra coming from one of the whirlpools. "One of them is fake," she informed with shock on her voice. "It's some sort of genjutsu." Choji smiled in relief, happy to have found a way out of the place. "Then that means we can get out of here." "Right," Ino agreed with a smile. "We should meet back up with Naruto and tell him about this. Maybe he even found a boat we could use." Wait! Hinata called out with a bit of panic on her voice. The other two shinobi looked at her in confusion before she pointed at the horizon. "There's a ship coming this way." Ino and Choji squinted their eyes while looking at the horizon but saw nothing but water. "What kind of boat is it?" Ino asked the Hyuga. Hinata focused on the faraway boat with the veins around her eyes straining. "It's a small boat," she finally spoke after a moment of silence, "a bit smaller than the one we used yesterday." The group focused on the horizon before the water suddenly shot up. The beast that had attacked them the previous day emerged, howling loud enough for them to hear. It's going to attack the boat, Hinata let out in shock as she continued to watch the scene with her Byakugan. Ino quickly ran through hand sings before slamming both hands on the ground. Summoning jutsu. 4 eagles appeared before her, 3 large ones and a small one. She turned her attention to the small one before speaking. Go to the destroyed village and look for a guy with blonde hair. Get him to come here. The eagle nodded before flying away while Ino turned to the rest of the team. Get on 1 eagle each, she ordered while motioning for the eagles standing on the ground. We're going to help out those people while the other eagles goes to get Naruto back. The 2 ninja agreed and got on their respective eagles' back. Ino climbed onto her own eagle before they began to move, flapping their strong wings and rising through the air. Ino kept a serious look on her face as the eagle flew through the blue skies. Whoever was being attacked needed their help and they would give it to them. They would take down the beast once and for all. Still no sign of it, Omo muttered to himself as he steered the ship. It had been roughly about an hour since he and Karui had made it near the island. The place was covered in whirlpools and seemed to be deserted, at least from what he could see. There was still no sign of the creature, much to his displeasure, and he was growing a bit impatient. Maybe I was wrong about this place being a key factor. He glanced around the ocean but found no signs of movement. On the deck, Karui glanced around with a scowl on her face. She was tired of looking for that thing and was starting to think that finding it would take hours if not days. The weather only added to her irritation. The sun was burning her skin and she had to constantly shield her eyes from it since Omu moved the ship around without saying anything. Her frown deepened as she glanced over her shoulder at her teammate. I'm tired of looking for this thing. Let's just leave. Omo continued to look around, not having paid attention to his teammate. He really didn't need to since he knew her too well by now. She was probably tired of looking around and wanted to leave, that much was obvious to him, but he still didn't think they should leave so suddenly. Hey, listen to me. His shoulders dropped slightly at the sound of Karui's scream. If he didn't do anything then she would only drive him insane. Listen Karui, we can't just Leah Omoy begun but stopped abruptly, his eyes hardening and darting around the area. Karui furrowed her brows at her teammate's odd behavior. What the hell are you doing? His eyes widened in shock before snapping his head towards Karui. Get out of the boat, quick. Hearing the alarm in his voice, Karui jumped out of the boat with Omoy following behind her. The 2 landed on top of the ocean as the water erupted before them, splashing and getting their clothes wet. Waves formed, rocking their boat back and forth as a large figure emerged from the ocean. What the hell is that? Karui let out as she gaped at the creature. Its head was in the shape of a dragon while the body resembled that of a snake. It had dark blue fins on parts of its back and light blue whiskers. Omo narrowed his eyes on the beast before taking out a long white katana strapped to his back. He twirled it on his right hand before putting it to his side. Be careful with your lightning attacks. We're on the ocean and I don't want to get caught in one of your attacks, Omo told Karui as he bent his knees slightly, ready to jump at the beast. Taking out her own katana from its red sheath, Karui scoffed, as if I'd do something so stupid. Just leave this thing to me, I have to get rid of this pent-up energy. Before Omu could do anything, Karui was already charging at the creature. Damn, that idiot probably forgot we have to capture this thing. Omu followed after Karui just as the beast raised its large tails before swinging it at them. The 2 easily jumped over it and continued their charge while the beast pointed its face at them, gathering water on its mouth before shooting it at them. The 2 cloud ninja twirled in opposite directions, dodging the incoming torrent of water without missing a beat. Omu leapt at the beast head-on while Karui moved to its back. The beast sneered before biting at the incoming Omoy, who struck his katana in front of him defensively as lightning danced around the blade. Large fangs met with the blade before the beast screeched in pain due to the electricity. It recoiled back as the electricity left its body and didn't notice the ninja running up the length of its body. Karui made her way to the beast's body, raising her blade once she made it to its head before slashing at it without hesitation. Blood splattered out of the wound as the beast let out another screech of pain, throwing its head back before retreating back into the water. The cloud kunoichi jumped off the beast and landed safely on the water, watching as it dove into the ocean. We have to capture it so don't inflict any fatal wounds, Omoy reminded. He kept his eyes on the water since he knew that the beast would attack once again. Both eyes narrowed when noticing movement, and, in a show of agility, he jumped back in a backward somersault just as the water beneath his feet shot up. The beast emerged once more, its black eyes glaring into them before letting out a loud roar. Whirlpools formed around it as it brought its focus to the 2 ninja while raising its tail to attack. Body Expansion Jutsu. Before anybody could move, Choji fell down from the sky with his right arm increasing drastically in size before it met the beast's head with a loud impact. Its mouth snapped shut before it was sent underwater from the force of the attack. Water shot on all sides as Choji flipped in the air before landing safely before the two Cloud Ninja, both of them looking at him in surprise. Omoi studied the newly arrived person and took quick notice of the headband he wore. A Konoha shinobi, huh? No sooner than he said that Ino and Hinata fell from the sky as well, landing behind Choji. So everybody's here already. What are Cloud Ninja doing here? Ino spoke up with a serious look on her face. Karui smirked before dropping into a fighting stance. Two different groups of ninja meet for similar missions. What do you think happens now? Even if we tell you why we're here, there's no point. You won't be leaving this place alive. Ino gritted her teeth. She knew that the Cloud Ninja wouldn't make things easy, but she didn't expect them to fight while the beast was still around. No matter the village, that was just a stupid thing to do. What are we doing then? Choji asked the two kunoichi, not wanting to rush things. Do we fight them? There's no choice, Ino responded before turning to Hinata. Back us up and have your Byakugan active so that you can warn us of the beast coming back. Hinata nodded in understanding. I got it. Ino moved next to Choji, taking out a kunai. Behind her, Hinata had her Byakugan active as she scanned the area for the beast. Karui clicked her tongue before charging at Ino with her blade held back. She watched as Choji ran at her once close enough, but he was blocked by Oma, who held a look of seriousness as he pointed his blade at the ninja, silently telling him not to move. Seeing as Karui continued her charge, Ino was not one to stay still. She pulled out another kunai and, with deadly accuracy, flung them at the incoming ninja's legs. They neared the Cloud Ninja before she stopped dead on her tracks and swung her blade down, effectively knocking the kunai aside. That was too close, Karui frowned to herself as she turned back to the leaf kunoichi, watching as she ran through hand signs before taking aim. Water style. Raging waves. A torrent of water shot out of the kunoichi's mouth, but Karui didn't have great reflexes for nothing. She quickly twirled to her right as the torrent of water shot past her while making a mental note to watch out for the kunoichi's aim. It was too precise for her liking. Ino found herself smirking as Karui charged at her once more. She was too predictable. She quickly ran through the necessary hand signs as the water in front of her began to stir. She held the hand seal in place, waiting for Karui to get closer before finally using her jutsu. Water style. Water Fong Bullet. Small swirls of water appeared around Karui before spinning and shooting at her. Her eyes widened in alarm as she ducked under the incoming attacks but took one on the back, making her stumble a few feet forward before regaining herself. Her back ached, but she didn't have time to linger on it since more of those swirls were appearing around her. Damn it, she cursed before running through hand signs only to stop before she could be done. No, her lightning attacks would be too dangerous to use. Instead, she jumped high in the air before raising her blade and taking aim. Ino was one step ahead and leapt at Karui, her kunai clashing against her blade before the two moved away from each other. Karui gritted her teeth as she gripped her katana tighter. She was at a disadvantage. Most of the jutsus she knew were lightning-based, and using them in the ocean would only get her and Omoi hurt as well. She had only her kenjutsu and taijutsu to rely on, but the leaf kunoichi was always able to keep the appropriate distance from her. Damn, she shifted her stance as she wondered on how to fight this one. Choji saw himself in a disadvantage as Omoi moved towards him once again. The Cloud Ninja was fast, and him having a sword meant that Choji could only dodge. He frowned deeply as Omoi swung at him, but before he could get close enough, Choji had already moved away from the attack, putting a fair distance between them. I'm going to catch you sooner or later, Omoi began with his expression still being thoughtful. Why not just leave? I'm not like my teammate. I'll let you go if you don't wish to fight. It'll be too much trouble to fight you guys. Choji couldn't help but chuckle, earning him a confused look from Omoi. Sorry, but you just remind me of a friend of mine, he chuckled before getting into his taijutsu stance, and there's no way we're leaving. I'm sure none of us want to do that. Omo let out a sigh. Well, I tried. He prepared to attack but stopped when the Hyuga suddenly ran closer to her teammates. It's coming up again, Hinata informed with a look of panic on her face. The gathered group of ninja looked around in wonder before the water shot up around them. Whirlpools formed on the area, forcing the group of ninja to move away as the beast resurfaced once more. It bared its large teeth at them as it studied the gathered ninja. Ino clenched her fists before turning to Choji. Out of the three of them, only he could manage to hold off the creature due to his physical strength. Choji, keep that thing away from us. Hinata and I will fight these two ninja, Ino decided as the beast let out a growl. The Akimichi moved towards the creature, Ino taking his place against Omoi while Hinata moved to stand before Karui. A Hyuga, Karui muttered with a bit of eagerness on her voice. This kind of enemy would be fun to say the least. Clutching her katana tightly, she rushed at the Hyuga. Meanwhile Omoi kept his gaze on Ino with a frown on his face. All of this fighting seemed pointless to him. Now there was a single ninja taking on the beast which would undoubtedly end up with him dead. But then again, he knew better than to linger on it. If it was a fight they wanted, then there was nothing he could do. He had to finish his mission after all. There were a lot of people, Gaara observed. He and an escort team consisting of 2 Jonin and 3 Chunin were getting ready to leave the village. The Chunin exams would start in a few days and he wanted to get there a bit early in order to have the chance to have a word with the ninja representing his village. A crowd had gathered around them and to his surprise they were there to see them off. Having grown up as a Jinchuriki, alone and hated, he hadn't expected so many people to see him off. Much less yelling encouraging words. "We'll miss you, Lord Kazakage. Be careful out there. Good luck," were among the things they yelled. He felt a bit of happiness but still held his monotone expression, giving the crowd an awkward wave. "You're ready to go," Lord Kazakage Baki, old sensei turned counselor, spoke to the Kazakage. Gaara glanced at Baki before giving him a nod. Very well. The escorts formed around him, blocking him from all sides. He thought it was a bit much but didn't voice it. Being Kazakage meant having to put up with people worrying about him traveling, and this had been the only time he had gotten away with not traveling on a kind of carriage the ninja would carry, quite pointless on his opinion. Being a Kage didn't mean that he couldn't walk. "Let us go then," Gaara announced to the group of ninja. They began to move out of the village while the crowd wished the Kazakage luck in the form of cheers. Water style, water dragon jutsu. Omoi's eyes widened in alarm as he skidded to a stop before jumping away from the area just as a dragon made of water shot past him. He landed on the ocean but froze when he saw the dragon changing direction and moving towards him once again. "What is this?" He frowned inwardly before kicking off the water and moving up the air. Lightning danced around his blade as the water dragon followed after him. He brought his blade down on the incoming attack. With his affinity being the stronger one, he dispersed the water dragon without much trouble. Once the dragon was won, he stopped the flow of chakra going into his blade as he fell towards the water once more and landing safely. Ino's eyes narrowed on the enemy once taking in the latest information. He was a lightning user, which meant that his attacks would be useless unless he was airborne. It would actually be a big advantage, but he had a teammate to think about, which meant that he had to be careful with his jutsu. If that was the case, then all she needed to do was keep her distance so that his blade or taijutsu couldn't reach her. She smirked, finding the task to be a lot easier than she once thought. Running through hand signs once more, she watched as Omu moved towards her. She unleashed a torrent of water on the incoming ninja but gasped when he cut through it easily, making her attack look like nothing. Omoi closed in on Ino before swinging his blade just as Ino ducked under the deadly attack. The katana whizzed past her head as she took out a kunai to retaliate but was stopped by a hard kick to her left side. With pain written all over her face, Ino bit her lower lip before stabbing at Omoi, who easily maneuvered away from her. He stood there with the same calm look on his face, not even breathing hard. It looked like the fight wouldn't be as easy as she once thought. "I got careless," Ino scolded herself as she placed her right hand on her left side, green chakra emitting from it and soothing the wound. Though not fully healing it, she would be able to get rid of the pain long enough to finish the fight. Omoi watched in mild fascination as Ino worked on her wound. Her body was slightly hunched as she worked on it before she straightened up and stopped the flow of chakra, turning back to her with a look of anger. He had never fought a medic before but knew that this one would pose a threat if he didn't finish her quickly enough. He cast a look at his teammate, wondering how she was faring against her opponent. So far Karui had yet to cause any real damage on the Hyuga. In fact, they hadn't really exchanged too many blows. The leaf kunoichi was simply too defensive, and it was close to impossible to get through her defenses. The Byakugan was interesting. It was no wonder that her village had pursued it in the past. "Don't get too full of yourself," Karui pointed her katana at Hinata with a deep frown on her face. "It's just because of that annoying bloodline that you're managing to live longer than you should." Hinata said nothing, choosing to focus on the fight instead. It was usual for ninja to try and taunt the other into making a mistake, but she knew better than to fall for it. She suddenly let out a gasp, her Byakugan catching Choji being knocked aside by the beast's giant tail. He sailed through the air before twisting his body and managing to land safely on the ocean. His breathing was heavy as he looked at the beast in front of him. It was way too difficult for him to fight it alone. Not only did the beast have size, but it was pretty agile as well. Be it slithering under his attacks or just diving into the ocean to avoid being hit, the beast was simply too difficult for him alone. But glancing at his teammate, he knew that it would be impossible to ask for their help. They were having trouble themselves, so he had to find a way to deal with the beast. "What do I do?" Choji muttered to himself as the beast let out a roar before shooting at him. He gritted his teeth, standing his ground as his right fist grew in size. The beast continued to get closer before he finally punched at it. "Take this." His fist met the beast head-on, creating a small shockwave, as it let out a screech of pain but didn't let up. It continued to push against Choji's giant fist until it finally managed to push it back, much to the Akimichi's shock. Choji grunted as he tried to push the beast away, but to no avail. It continued to push his arm back before it got way too close for comfort. The beast let out a growl as it finally pushed his fist aside and left him completely helpless. The world slowed down for Choji as the beast got closer and closer, showing its large teeth and getting ready to deal the fatal blow. His eyes were wide in alarm before noticing someone suddenly intercepting the beast, delivering 2 open palm strikes and knocking it off course. The beast disappeared into the water while Hinata landed in front of Choji with a bit of worry on her face. "Are you okay?" Choji nodded before turning back to the beast, watching as it rose once again with its size towering above them. "You're not escaping again, Hyuga." The two-leaf ninja turned to see Karui charging at her. Choji's right arm grew in size, and before Karui could get too close to Hinata, he punched at the incoming ninja, making contact with her upper body before sending her flying through the air. "Thanks," Hinata said in appreciation to Choji, who nodded with a smile. Karui fell into the ocean before using chakra to push herself out and managing a crouching stance. Her katana was gripped tightly on her right hand as she glared at the two ninja. Choji and Hinata faced different directions, having to deal with very different enemies. Ino watched over her teammates with a worried frown on her face. They had gotten a little break, but they wouldn't be able to catch them off guard again. She needed to get to them before it was too late. "Don't lose your focus," Omoe deadpanned as he swung his blade at Ino, whose eyes widened before ducking under the blow. He easily predicted this and kicked at her, making contact with her stomach before swinging his blade down on her once again. The kunoichi dropped the chakra on her feet as a kunai fell down her right sleeve and she struck it upwards, making contact with the incoming blade before she went underwater from the impact. Omoe kept a calm look on his face as he glanced around the water for any sign of the kunoichi. He had to admit that last move had been good, but he didn't have time to waste anymore. The Konoha ninja were probably looking for the beast as well, which meant that they would either kill it or capture it. He wasn't sure of what they would do, which meant that he had to stop them before the situation escalated further. He couldn't risk the beast being killed. "Don't lose your focus," Ino smirked once she resurfaced behind Omoe and slashed at him with her kunai. The Cloud Ninja frowned before leaning forward so that the sheath of his blade blocked the incoming slash. Ino's hand recoiled back once the kunai met the hard sheath and jumped away from the enemy when seeing the way his feet were positioned. Like she had predicted, Omoe turned around while swinging at the air. "Not bad," he admitted as he held the katana to his side. "For someone with no weapon, you're holding your own quite well." Ino frowned as she slipped into her fighting stance once more, flicking her left wrist as another kunai dropped from her sleeve. "I don't need your praise," she glared as she flung both kunai with deadly accuracy. Omoe easily knocked them aside with his katana before catching movement from the corner of his right eye. He almost froze when he saw a horde of kunai coming his way. "What the hell?" He jumped away from where he stood only to receive a powerful torrent of water to his chest, sending him flying through the air and towards an incoming dragon made of wind. "Damn it," Omoe growled as he braced himself for the incoming attack, letting out a scream of pain as the dragon swallowed him whole. The attack went on for a few moments before finally stopping to reveal Omoe with several cuts throughout his body. The Cloud Ninja scowled as he turned to the newly arrived ninja responsible for the attack. "Who are you?" He couldn't help but ask the smirking blonde ninja that stood near the Konoha kunoichi. Naruto's smirk only grew as he unsheathed his new katana, wind flowing through it and increasing its length and sharpness. "Does it really matter?" Omoe narrowed his eyes on him before the blonde ninja disappeared in a cloud of smoke. "What the dash?" Naruto appeared behind Omoe, quickly leaping at his exposed back with his blade on hand. He swung down on the Cloud Ninja, aiming at his exposed neck before he turned on his heel with a blade of his own. The two blades met with a loud clang as the two ninjas stared each other down. Wrong one again, Naruto grinned as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Omoe had no time to think as two hands gripped his heels before dragging him into the water. His eyes closed as he was dragged underwater before they opened to see hundreds of clones waiting for him there. The clones smirked as they ran through hand signs. Shit. That was good, Naruto. Ino smiled in relief, already feeling more at ease now that Naruto had arrived. He simply had that air around him, something that told her that everything would be okay and he wouldn't let anything hurt her. Naruto grinned at her before noticing the rest of his team still in the midst of battle. That probably took care of him. Let's go help the others. She nodded in agreement as the two began to move towards the rest of the team, only to stop when the water behind them shot up. The two turned around to see Omoe standing before them, looking a lot worse than before. He was breathing heavily but still seemed to be able to keep going. You used a lightning jutsu to take them all out, not bad. But you still want to keep going, don't you? Naruto questioned with his eyes narrowed. Does it really matter? Omoe repeated Naruto's earlier words with the same calm look on his face. Naruto chuckled as he readjusted the grip on his katana. Ino, go help Choji and Hinata. I'll take care of this guy, he muttered to her. Ino's initial thought was to disagree but dismissed it. They had been able to hurt Omoe pretty badly and it didn't look like he could do much anymore. Sure, it was a surprise attack, but it didn't mean that Naruto couldn't hold his own against him. He had trained with a legendary ninja for 3 years after all. Alright, just be careful. Right, Naruto agreed as he watched her rushing towards their teammates. He turned back to Omoe as wind enhanced his blade once more. Let's get this over with, Cloud Ninja. Omoe frowned in response, eyes glaring into the blonde, then let's. Karui charged in at Hinata, her eyes focused on the Hyuga's hands since they would give away what she would be doing, be it a defensive or offensive move. So, watching as both her arms moved back slightly, she knew that it would be an offensive move. A smirk formed on her face as she kicked off the water and ran as fast as she could, dodging the expected attacks by ducking under the first fist and slapping the second away before she stabbed at Hinata with her blade. Before the blade got close enough, a torrent of water knocked it off her hand. She turned to her right as Ino closed in on her with a kunai in each hand before throwing them at her without losing speed. Karui quickly jumped away, taking note of the way the kunai passed right by the Hyuga without so much as grazing her, which meant that the kunoichi's aim was close to perfect, something that would be annoying as the fight went on. Are you guys alright? Ino approached Hinata while throwing Choji a glance, watching as he continued to the beast by using his enlarged limbs to push it away from them but not having much luck in lessening its tries. Ino turned back to the Hyuga before giving her a firm nod. I'll take care of her, go help Choji. Hinata looked at Ino with a bit of worry. What about the other ninja? Naruto's here already. He's fighting him right now. The two kunoichi stopped their conversation when Karui began to rush at them once more, holding her blade to the side while her eyes glared into them in apparent rage. Ino took a step forward, standing in front of Hinata as a way to tell her to go aid Choji and that she had things under control. Hinata gave Ino one last glance before leaving the area in order to help her other teammate. Ino wasted no time and quickly kicked off the water, taking out a pair of kunai before meeting Karui's blade with her own two weapons, both kunoichi pushing against each other, as their eyes glared into each other's. She continued to apply pressure on Karui's blade before kicking both legs from under her, a look of shock showing on her face before twisting herself and managing to plant both hands on the water, using them to quickly push herself to a standing position and jumping away from the Konoha kunoichi. As soon as her feet landed on the water, she was met by the sight of two kunai coming her way, but she easily knocked them away with a couple of slashes from her blade. She prepared to move once more but stopped when seeing that Ino was running through hand signs. Her eyes narrowed on the ninja as she bent her knees in order to jump away if need be. Water style, water dragon jutsu. The large dragon made up of water formed in front of Ino before shooting straight at the cloud ninja, who easily dodged by sidestepping the attack, noticing that it was a bit smaller than the normal ones. Her eyes widened when noticing movement out of the corner of her eye, watching as the dragon turned its direction and moved towards her once again, this time moving a bit fast and losing a bit of size. Karui frowned as she added lightning to her blade and prepared herself to block the incoming attack that dispersed upon contact with her blade, much to her shock. Her brows furrowed in a show of confusion, not understanding how a water dragon could be so small and agile. Ino smirked from her spot on the water. Her attack was a lot different than the others since she gave it a few kinks in order to raise its speed and be able to control it freely. It was an idea she got when trying to find a way to use less chakra when using it. It was simple really, all she did was lower the length and width of the dragon, everything else just followed after that. The jutsu did lose power and was easier to disperse, but it was worth it, and it wasn't like she couldn't use the normal jutsu anyway. Water-style Ino ran through hand signs as the water around Karui began to shake slightly, reminding her of what jutsu it was before she jumped away just as the water began to spin. Water Fang Bullet. The spinning streams of water shot at Karui, whose blade managed to block the attacks without much trouble before she caught sight of Ino rushing at her at a fast speed. Her first instinct told her to move away, but she chose to meet her halfway instead, raising her blade as she broke into a run. It wasn't long before the two made it to each other, Karui swinging at Ino only for her to dodge by ducking under the swipe and delivering a chakra-enhanced punch to the Cloud Ninja's stomach. Blood splattered out of Karui's mouth as Ino's fist dug into her stomach before launching her through the air. Her eyes were wide as she coughed violently, seeing a bit of blood occasionally. She growled in pain as she twisted in the air, ignoring the pain shooting through her stomach as she did so before she finally flipped and managed to land in a crouching position, pressing a hand to her stomach in an obvious show of pain. What the fuck was that? She screamed in her head. It didn't make any sense. The kunoichi didn't seem to be that strong physically. Hell, she hadn't even been able to push against her blade earlier. Reason told her that the Konoha ninja was not physically strong, but then why did she punch like that? The freaking punch had left her a gasping mess after making contact once. Ino smiled inwardly. Everything was going well. Deception was the tool she used best, leading enemies into a false sense of security before showing her true colors. Her unusual attack patterns made it easy for her since she could go from a heavy attacker to a quick and swift one in a matter of seconds. The training she received from Tsunade and Anko had increased her taijutsu exponentially, not to mention that her dragon water jutsu always threw people off. Speaking of which, she quickly ran through hand signs slow enough to give Karui a chance to see but fast enough as to not arouse suspicion. Another smirk etched on her face when seeing her enemy push lightning through her blade, which meant that she had fallen for it. Water style, water dragon jutsu. The dragon formed in front of Ino, growing in size until finally shooting at Karui, slower than before but gaining size as it moved, much to the misfortune of the Cloud Ninja. Karui gritted her teeth as the attack grew closer until finally meeting her blade and instantly pushing her back several feet. A gasp escaped her mouth as the attack continued to push her away, pressure on her blade increasing with each passing second until she couldn't take any more, her blade being knocked out of her hand and leaving her to take the attack without any means of defense. That took care of her. Water splashed around the area as Ino broke her gaze away from where her enemy had been, instead switching her gaze to Choji and Hinata fighting the beast and having a bit of trouble. She took out a couple of kunai before walking towards her teammates, knowing that the next fight wouldn't be any easier. Naruto steadied the katana in his hands before rushing at Omoi, the water beneath his feet splashing about as he neared the enemy before drawing his blade back, ready to swing at the unmoving target. He swung at Omoi, who quickly parried the attack with his own blade before throwing a punch with his free hand, but Naruto saw through this and ducked under the blow before raising his body upwards along with his left arm, delivering an uppercut to Omoi's chin and snapping his head back. Not done, he followed with a hard punch to the ninja's stomach, earning a grunt of pain before he readied his blade for the final slash. Not one to be defeated so easily, Omoi regained himself before raising his blade once more and blocking the incoming swing as lightning began to dance around his blade, coursing through Naruto's before moving into his body. Naruto gritted his teeth as he focused wind into his blade, intercepting the weaker element and preventing any more electricity from entering his body. Their blades pushed against the other, wind versus lightning, sparks emitting from both blades due to the opposing elements and the grinding of two metals. With either of them having the advantage, the two jumped away from each other in order to put a bit of distance between them, knowing that they had locked themselves in with no chance of breaking through. "I didn't think you'd be a wind user," Omoi commented as he went over the possible outcomes of this development. He was a thoughtful person, which would lead to him being prepared for most kinds of situations given enough time, though it really didn't take him too long. Naruto only frowned, reading his blade once more and putting it in front of him while gripping it with both hands. "Let's end this quickly." His blade grew in length due to the effects of the wind sharpening it. "I still have to take care of that thing." "It's no good to be so overconfident," Omoi pointed out as lightning filled his blade, cackling loudly as it emitted blue sparks before he broke into a run. Naruto held his ground as the ninja grew closer, eyes focused on his movements before finally swinging his blade with a large wave of wind shooting out of it, and heading straight for Omoi, who quickly jumped over it without much trouble. He flipped in the air before landing on the water with his knees bent, and using the gained momentum to kick off of the water and leap at Naruto in a fast speed. Said ninja saw this and raised his blade to meet the blow, creating a shockwave due to the opposing forces pushing against the other. Both Naruto and Omoi knew that the prior would end up the victor of their deadlock due to his element having the edge over lightning. It would only be a matter of time before he could break through his defense. Naruto's eyes narrowed on Omoi as he focused more chakra into his blade, wind coursing through it as the blade increased in length even more and beginning to push away the lightning-filled blades slowly but surely. It was at this time that Omo raised his free hand in order to point his index and middle finger at Naruto's chest as lightning gathered at the tip of both fingers, and, while Naruto took note of this, he was too late as Omo uttered his attack. Lightning style, paralyzing shot. Lightning shot out of Omo's fingers, hitting Naruto on the chest before his body began to shake violently, teeth gritted in obvious pain. He let out a grunt of pain while noticing the Cloud Ninja raising his blade at him before swinging down. Without thinking about the consequences, Naruto quickly dropped the flow of chakra going through his feet, instantly dropping into the water just in time to avoid Omi's lethal swing. Damn it! I didn't think this through. Naruto thought in alarm as he sank down the ocean, the equipment he carried making him sink like a rock. His mouth shut firmly, not wanting to waste even the smallest bit of air as he thought of what to do. The jutsu Oma had used had made it impossible for him to move, and he was running out of time. Fast. His chest began to ache terribly as his lungs demanded oxygen. He grunted as he fought to move but could only muster the smallest of movements. Why the fuck does this always happen to me? Finally, under too much strain, his mouth opened involuntarily to look for oxygen, taking in the salty water of the ocean in a big gulp. Naruto began to panic, only thinking of getting out of the ocean as he tried to move but couldn't. Fuck it, he screamed in his head as he began to concentrate his chakra before noticing something moving towards him. Huh? The beast roared as it launched at the three Konoha shinobi, pushing through a couple of kunai, moving its way but not being able to stop a large fist from making contact with its head, making it recoil back before receiving a horde of punches just under its head. It quickly composed itself before nodding its head down and swatting the Hyuga down, though she managed to flip in the air and land safely before leaping away from him and landing next to her teammates. What do we do now? Choji asked as sweat trailed down his face. He was spent, having to stall the creature for so long had its toll on him, not to mention that his chakra was almost gone. Beside him, Ino shook her head with a grim look on her face. I don't know what to do. Most of my chakra was used when fighting that Cloud Ninja, and I don't have anything that could take out something so big. Ino pointed at the giant beast for emphasis, her eyes half-lidded in a show of exhaustion. Hinata sighed before moving a few bangs away from her face. I don't know any jutsu that can take it out either. My other attacks won't be of much help since the beast is too large for me to attack its chakra points. Once more the beast prepared to attack before a ray of light shone against its right eye. It growled before turning to the source before recognition flashed through its eyes before diving into the ocean and leaving three confused ninja behind. Omoi sheathed his blade when noticing that Naruto had yet to come out. He let out a sigh of relief, a bit glad that his fight was over but knowing that he now had to handle three more ninja and the rampaging beast. Turning to where the other fight should be, he immediately rose a brow, finally noticing that the fight was over and there was no sign of either Karui or the beast. What the hell happened? He almost groaned before taking a step forward just as the water behind him shot up, soaking his whole body as he turned on his heel to see the beast emerge from the ocean with the outline of a person on its head. He narrowed his eyes on the figure atop the beast's head, finding the spiky bangs a bit familiar. How is that guy still alive? Atop the beast's head was Naruto on all fours, coughing up water harshly. His blade was still held on his right hand as he continued his coughing fit. He mustered a look of confusion as he realized where he was and wondered why the beast had saved him. Not more than an hour ago it had been attacking them, so why the change? Why had it saved him from drowning when they were its enemies? It just didn't make sense to him. You're an Uzumaki, the beast spoke in a deep voice, surprising the ninja atop its head. I can see it from the blade you carry. So what? Naruto managed as his coughing died down, now panting and holding his chest in pain. What are you anyway? And why have you been attacking people? I am the proud leader of the Sea Serpents, a summon reserved only to the Uzumaki. Its voice held a bit of pride as it spoke. My last instructions were to take care of what remains of Whirlpool, and I have done just that, waiting to meet an Uzumaki once again. So that's how it was. Naruto thought over all that happened, the beast destroying boats, and appearing to be in a rampage when it was simply trying to divert attention away from Whirlpool. He fought the urge to roll his eyes. It was a simple misunderstanding in which people let their fears control them. You didn't have to destroy boats though, Naruto spoke up. That just made people think you were insane. Couldn't you have done something else? I lost a lot of power after so many years away from home. The only way to continue protecting Whirlpool was to attack the ships head-on. The tiredness on its voice could be heard, as if it hadn't rested in ages. Why didn't you just go home? He pulled himself into a standing position as the summon beneath him shoot its head, making him stumble forward before using chakra to keep himself from falling off. We sea serpents are different. We do not go away without the consent of our masters, that is what makes us different. Then I'll get you home, he assured in confidence before setting his sight on the cloud ninja that still stood before them. I'm not feeling too well, so please help me take care of this fight. It is no problem, master. Naruto, he introduced himself as he prepared himself for round 2. The sea serpent boss let out a low growl as it prepared to attack, forming whirlpools around it. Understood, Master Naruto. Alright then. He pointed his blade at Omoi as the Uzumaki summon beneath him let out a roar with the whirlpools spinning faster than before. Let's take him down. Omoi held a look of worry as the beast snarled at him, baring its large teeth before shooting at him almost instantly, but the cloud ninja reacted quickly and dodged by jumping to the side, only to receive a cut to his right arm that cut part of his sleeve. Blood seeped out of the wound as he glanced over his shoulder to see Naruto land on the water behind him before stabbing at him. Omoi quickly spun in place before raising his blade to parry the blow and leaving Naruto vulnerable. He prepared to attack him but caught movement out of the corner of his eye and quickly backflipped as the beast sunk its head into the water he had stood on not long ago, obviously trying to swallow him up. Damn, he muttered to himself as the beast lowered its head to allow Naruto to climb on it. This just got a lot more difficult. He twirled the katana on his right hand, preparing to attack before noticing a body floating among the waves around him. His eyes widened before he ran at the body, finding it to be Karui. He quickly checked her vitals and found her to be alive, much to her relief, though it was short-lived since he was still in the middle of a battle. I have to get out of here. He knew for a fact that fighting while making sure Karui was safe would be next to impossible. Quickly scanning the area, he found a boat floating not too far away from the area. He could use it to make a run for it since their mission was pretty much over now. Nodding to himself, he picked up Karui and steadied her on his shoulder before running through hand signs and pointing both palms at Naruto. Once done, lightning coursed through them as he unleashed his jutsu, lightning style, blinding flash. Naruto gritted his teeth as dozens of lightning bolts shot at them. He prepared to counter with a wind jutsu but couldn't finish as the bolts nearing them suddenly exploded in blinding bursts of light, making him shield his eyes with a hiss of pain. The summon beneath him began to move its head from side to side, making him come to the conclusion that it had fallen for the jutsu as well. They're gone, he growled. Having kept clones keeping the boat he came in safe, gave him an insight of what happened, in this case Omoi appearing out of nowhere and taking them out with a swipe of his blade. He frowned, his clones hadn't been on the alert, playing us some kind of game instead. Freaking idiots, he cursed the clones. A few moments passed before Naruto could finally open his eyes without the danger of being blinded. He winced at the stinging sensation on his eyes, finding the sun's rays too bright. He blinked away the remaining stinging before looking around the ocean and finding the boat to be too far away to pursue. They had gotten away. Naruto! His brows furrowed as he turned to the holder of the voice, finding his team standing on the water with apprehensive looks, all in their taijutsu stances and ready to attack the beast. It's okay, he put up both hands to keep them from attacking before jumping off the summon and landing in front of them with a small grin. He's alright, don't worry. The team continued to look at the beast warily but didn't voice their concerns. Naruto turned back to the summon with a grin. Can you go back home now? The summon shook its head as it lowered its head to see Naruto more properly. You need to sign our contract. I can't leave until you do. Naruto nodded at the beast, who focused its eyes on him before summoning a large scroll on his hands. Alright then, he opened the scroll, finding many names already there, before biting his thumb until drawing blood and writing his name down. There, all done. I thank you, Master Naruto. The gratitude in its voice was evident as it nodded at him. If you ever need to travel the seas, call one of us. We'll take you wherever you wish. The Uzumaki summon left in a giant cloud of smoke after that, engulfing the area as Naruto turned back to see his shocked team, smiling amusingly before speaking. What's up? 8 shadowed holograms circled around 2 Akatsuki members, their hats off but the darkness of the cave masking their faces. We heard from a spy, said one of the holograms. Apparently the Kazekage is on his way to the waterfall village. The hologram in the center of the gathered members turned to the 2 Akatsuki that were currently in the cave. You two are to get ready for his arrival. Do not make any mistakes. One of the Akatsuki members let out a chuckle. Who do you think we are? It's not like we're some walking sushi, yeah? Why don't you come meet me in the sharpest end of Samahata? Another member threatened with a snarl. Enough, loomed the voice of their leader before he turned to the 2 members assigned with the capture of the one-tailed beast. This meeting is over. Do not fail. With that the holograms disappeared, leaving only 2 Akatsuki members in the cave, one of them clicking his tongue and picking up his hat. He quickly put it on, letting the tassels cover his face and blonde hair kept in a high ponytail. Let's get this over with, he sighed. We don't want to make leader angry, yeah? The other member said nothing, instead walking out of the cave without so much as a word, making the other member click his tongue before following. The hunt for the Ichibi had begun. Anything? They got nothing. Naruto answered Ino bluntly after regaining the memories of the clones he had sent looking for another boat. It had been a few hours since their fight with the Cloud Ninja, and the first thing he had done after getting back to Whirlpool was send clones to the building in which he had found the boat earlier. The clones had found nothing interesting and dispelled after thoroughly checking the place. Man, I'm already tired of seeing the sea all the time, he complained as he glanced at his team. Ino was next to him, appearing to agree with his earlier comment by getting a longing look on her face. Choji sat against a tree, still regaining strength after his physically taxing battle with the Uzumaki summon. Lastly, Hinata stood opposite of Ino with her gaze on the sea, appearing to be deep in thought. Is there really no way to get out of here? Ino asked with a bit of desperation. Naruto ran a hand through his hair, frowning as he thought over what to do. I could just summon a sea serpent to take us to wave, but... But what? She responded with a raised brow. If the summon could take them across the sea so easily, then why not? She would have volunteered to summon an eagle to take them home, but she was currently too low on chakra to summon one large enough, or the right amount of smaller eagles to take them across the sea. But the toads are going to get mad, Naruto laughed nervously while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Sensing the confusion of his teammates, currently looking at him incredulously, he continued, well, they told me that if I ever decided to get a second summon then I should tell them first, and I didn't. Knowing Gamabunta, he's just waiting to kick my ass for doing this. Ino sighed. Well then can't you? She was cut off as Naruto suddenly disappeared in a cloud of smoke, taking them all by surprise. Naruto! What just happened? Choji asked in utter shock, not having seen something like that before. But whatever, it's not like Gamabunta can lay a hand on me. What was that? Naruto froze, noticing the change in atmosphere and looking around the heavily vegetated Mount Maiboku. He glanced over his shoulder, seeing the towering figure of Gamabunta glaring at him disapprovingly. Hey, I take it you found out about the sea serpents? Yup. Gaara and his entourage continued to travel along a rocky path with many cliffs along the way. Throughout their trip, Gaara grew more and more agitated for some reason, something inside of him telling him to be more careful. He initially dismissed the feeling, but, after finding what appeared to be tracks not too far away from where they walked, he knew there was something wrong. He was sure to tell the ninja surrounding him to be more alert, and that there was something off about the place. The group continued along the path highly alert, entering an area between two high cliffs on their way. Some ninja relaxed after entering the covered path, finding it a bit easier to block attacks if they came from a straight line. Boom! The entrance of the cliff suddenly blew up, making the group turn around in shock before another explosion went off in front of them. Gaara was the first to react and quickly used a cloud of sand above them just as another explosion went off above, causing large boulders to shoot towards them but being blocked by the large cloud of sand. Lord Kazekage, are you alright? One of the ninja yelled as he moved to circle protectively around Gaara, as did the rest of the ninja. I'm Oka. Boom! The ground beneath the group went off in a powerful explosion that sent sand and debris aside as if nothing and creating a large cloud of dust. Gaara jumped out of the cloud with his clothes heavily burned and sporting many scratches around his body. He landed on top of the cliff and instantly scanned the area for survivors but found nothing but debris and smoke. He growled in anger, feeling completely useless for allowing his men to die just like that, without even putting up a fight. He had known they were in danger and entered a dangerous area without thinking much about it, since even exploding tags couldn't cause so much damage so quickly. There was something different about those explosions. Ha, I knew a Jinchuriki, much less a Kage, wouldn't die in there. Kinda glad you didn't, since leader would have been mad, yeah? Gaara turned around to meet eyes with a blonde-haired ninja having his hair in a ponytail and wearing a black cloak with red clouds. At the last observation his fists tightened, remembering a conversation he had had with Naruto not more than 2 years ago. Flashback. So you and the sage, Jiraiya, are staying here for a couple of days? Gaara asked the blonde walking next to him. Yeah, Naruto nodded with a smile, resting both hands behind his head and looking around the place in deep thought. But we only came for one reason. Gaara cast a look at Naruto, which is? There's a group of people after people like us, Jinchuriki, he answered as his expression grew serious, almost appearing to hold anger, making Gaara wonder why it was getting him so worked up. They are made up of really strong ninja. From what Jiraiya-sensei told me, their leader could even be stronger than any Kage. What is this group called? Naruto looked at Gaara with a look of pure seriousness. They're called. End flashback. The Akatsuki, Gaara muttered as he glanced at the single member standing before him, having a smirk on his face and appearing amused to have Gaara know him. You guys are well informed but still so unprepared, the member chuckled as he pointed behind Gaara. Said ninja turned on his heel only to receive several strikes to his upper body before falling limply on the ground with his eyes wide in disbelief. Why did you use your damned seals again? I was going to try my new art on him, the member with blonde hair scoffed before turning to walk away. Next time don't interfere, yeah? The other member said nothing, instead slinging Gaara over the right shoulder and beginning to walk away, leaving the heavily destroyed area behind. Nice to see ya again, Naruto boy. A smaller toad approached the two, its thick white eyebrows raising at the scene before him. The toad wore a black cape over its green body, while keeping his white hair styled in somewhat of a mohawk. Naruto smiled in relief, eyeing Gamabunta as he turned to the toad. Hey, nice to you too, Fukasaku-sensei. Fukasaku nodded to him before turning to Gamabunta and frowning. I said I would talk to him, stop scaring him already. Gamabunta muttered something under his breath before leaving, much to Naruto's relief and well-being. He turned to the remaining toad, still feeling a bit bad about just signing the other summoning contract without telling them like he had promised. You already know why you're here, Fukasaku stated, receiving a nod from Naruto, before continuing, well then, see you later. Naruto face faulted, looking at the toad in confusion. That was it? I thought you would scold me for sure. Besides, what was the point of bringing me here so suddenly, Fukasaku-sensei? Ah, thanks for reminding me. Shima wanted to see you again, she even prepared food for us. Naruto shuddered, remembering just what Shima, Fukasaku's wife, considered food. Things like worms and other kinds of bugs were among her favorite things to make, and he had actually tasted her cooking before, being fooled by Jiraiya, who slipped the food into one of his ramen cups and saying that if he had eaten it then he had to as well. And no, I'm a bit busy, he chuckled nervously, using his years of experience to think of a way to change the conversation. Oh, that's right. Has Jiraiya-sensei come here in the last few days? He hasn't. Were you looking for Jiraiya boy? Fukasaku asked. No, in fact this will work out better, Naruto told himself. His teacher took occasional visits to Mount Myaboku, which would come at about 1-month intervals. Counting the last few days of their travels and the time of his newest mission, the sage would surely end up showing up in the next few days. Then, could you tell him not to leave Konoha until I come back? I have to talk to him about something important. Sure, it's no problem, Fukasaku agreed with a smile. Naruto nodded at the elder toad before forming a hand sign. Alright then, I'll come back to visit